What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Ongodd Podcast, brought to you by the Post Office and Super Suites by Vince Chaco, who can meet all your different digital mailbox needs, as well as any studio needs if you're a musical artist in the industry located in the DFW area. So I'll be your host, Collin Steele. And without further ado, our guest today is going to be my buddy Joseph Valenzuela. He is a good friend of mine. What's up, brother? How are you, man?
Doing pretty good, man. How much stuff?
I'm good, brother. Hey, cheers, man.
Cheers, bro.
What's up, bro? Thank you for this. What is this again?
So, Miss Addie, man, from Wild Acre.
And they, you've got a little thing going on with them, right?
Yeah, man. I have a little Airbnb with a few partners.
Okay.
As you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. These guys, one of our partners, Taylor, man, him and his girl, kind of set up a little thing with these guys to where they're hooking us up. They're hooking up all our guests.
That's
you know
cool,
what I
man.
mean? And so
A little promotion.
a little promotion.
That's
we
cool.
promote
That's
them a little bit and kind of send our guests over their way and yeah, man, they kind of hook them up and of course take care of us every single time. So yeah, it's been pretty cool.
Let's go, bro. Let's go. Yeah, they're a little local whiskey distillery and vodka distillery here in the DFW area, Fort Worth.
Yeah, downtown Fort Worth, man.
All right. They're getting promoted and don't even know it yet.
I know, yeah.
For real. You're gonna have to go show them this video and they're gonna be like, damn.
Like, all right, instead of 25%.
Yeah, what else you got for me? We drink for free from now on.
For sure.
So, again, guys, Joseph Valenzuela, this guy is a local builder in the residential commercial industry, construction industry. And it seems like you've had a very interesting start and story up to this point, man. And it was cool. I really like how we met. I thought that'd be a cool place to start the conversation because it's an interesting place on how we kind of met. And you were early in your endeavors. You'd started already. But
absolutely, man. I was fresh.
You were fresh, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start there, man. So how did we meet, brother?
How did we meet?
You remember?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, obviously, on my first closing, my first house that I ever built, that was 2019.
Mm-hmm.
That was right around, that was, so my first build started 2019. I closed 2020. So I started late 2019 and closed early-ish 2020. I would say maybe early February.
And you're when we met, that was the first closing?
That was my very first closing.
That's great.
That was my very first
closing.
Man. Yeah.
I feel very privileged.
Which is still crazy to say, man, because I tell people this all the time, like, on my very first closing, like, obviously that was Hassan Manini.
Yeah.
And bro, like, okay, so I'm gonna go off on a little tangent here, but on my very first closing, that's whenever I got hit with a little appraisal, right? My very first closing. So
learning lessons.
Yeah, for sure, 100%, man. Like, that was a big learning lesson. And so I got hit with a little appraisal, and ultimately I decided to, hey, you know what? I'm gonna slash the sales price. I'm just gonna meet the appraisal price, and because at the end of the day, like,
just get this done.
Yeah, for sure. Like, well, not even to get this done, but I felt like, hey, man, like, these are people's lives on the line. You know what I mean? They've already made the decision to, hey, I'm gonna move into this house. I've made all the moves, and we found out about this maybe a week before closing, right? So we had already gone 25 days, throughout the entire process.
And it underappraised?
And it underappraised by like $27,000, $28,000, right? So it's a significant amount, right?
Yeah. And so for everyone listening, you may not be following if you're not in the real estate industry. What that means is, you're probably taking out a loan to purchase this home.
For sure.
And so if it doesn't appraise, basically the lender's not going to give you enough money in just full loan alone to cover the purchase of the home, right? So now cash has got to come from somewhere.
Exactly.
Either they got to come, the buyer's got to come with more money out of their pockets, or the seller, as you, the builder at the time, has to make some compromises.
For sure.
And that's what you're talking about.
Exactly. And a lot of the times, first-time home buyers, they're not going to have, an additional $27,000.
No way. I mean, a lot of them are, even if they're great with money, they're budgeting to the down.
For sure. Yeah. That's kind of the nature of the beast for first-time home buyer.
Right.
And so yeah, man, I was kind of, that was like my first kind of test of I don't know, like, I guess, being a moral type person, It was either, hey, put it back on the market and just try to get that additional $27,000, or hey, some of these guys that are discounted, because at the end of the day it wasn't their fault. They were willing to pay full price.
No doubt.
I was selling to the bank at that point, right? That was my first lesson, which I'm glad I had that lesson very early on.
Yeah.
But anyways, ended up selling it at a slash price, man, and these people, Hassan and Amy, bro, they've been
You're cool ever since.
It's super cool, man. Like, it's been to where we've traveled with these guys to Mexico. You know what I mean? So
I
it's
remember.
it ended up being like a really meaningful relationship that kind of came out of that. So that was pretty cool.
But you can't really put a price.
You can't put a price. I mean,
Yeah.
7,000. Yeah, that's a lot, but you can't put it. But anyways,
So y'all come into our office for the closing.
We came into your office.
We were a law firm acting as a title company at the time.
Yes.
And so y'all come in for closing.
Exactly.
And we wrap up the closing, and you and I are chatting it up in the owner / head attorney's office, Joe Gonzalez, and we connected on something, though.
For sure, bro. For sure. Absolutely, man. It was mountain biking.
It was mountain biking, right?
Mountain biking.
Yeah.
So, I remember. I don't specifically remember how we got to the topic, but one thing led to the next, and it was like, hey, you mountain bike. And
Right.
you're like, yes, I do. I was like, oh, okay, fucking awesome.
Right.
And then
it's all like Step Brothers.
For sure.
Yeah.
A little bit.
And I'm not like, that's not like one of my favorite movies, but it was very much like, I think I do remember my loud ass brought it up and started talking about mountain bike riding.
For sure.
And I asked you what bike you had.
Exactly.
And you were like, oh, I got a Specialized Evo. And I was like, what? I got a Specialized Evo. And you like show pictures like, we got the same bike. And I was like, did we just become best friends?
For sure.
It was a really cool moment.
Yeah. But I mean, to the people that probably don't know about mountain biking, like, this is first of all, there's a million type of bikes.
Sure, this is a niche sport.
There's a million type of bikes. There's thousands of brands all over the place, right? And then our specific bike, it's very, I mean, it's for a niche type of rider.
Absolutely.
Right? And so once we found out that, hey, we both had the same bike, that's when everybody was like, okay, yeah, for sure, like,
got good taste.
This is my type of friend. You know what I mean? Yeah, for sure, bro. That's crazy.
It was cool, man. No, that was really cool. And I had been I was still newish into the sport itself. And so it was something that was, really exciting for me still. Yeah. And so it was really cool to connect with.
But you had been riding for like, what, a year?
I had been, which is still new, I think, relatively.
For sure.
When I had, I had never really mountain bike. You talk about I talked about mountain bike riding as a kid or something, and had like a, growing up didn't have much and had like a $80 mongoose from Walmart. Yeah. And I twisted a few of those a few times, and aside from riding on, country roads and jumping a few ditches, I didn't know, right? And so I I went and dropped like $150 on a Trek, a crappy 26er or something. Yeah. With like just a hardtail. Okay. With like the worst front suspension ever, and I was riding at like not even bike trails.
So how old were you?
Oh man, I was living in Collin at the time, and I had known Vince for a couple of years. Okay. And he'd been mentoring me, and so I bought this bike, and it come up a few times in conversation. Mm-hmm. He was like, "You really riding that thing?" Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Yeah." And I didn't have any idea Vince was a mountain bike rider, and so he said, "We're ready to go." And I was like, "Okay." And I show up at this Dorba trail. What the hell is a Dorba trail? Right. And and Vince is a pivot, full suspension, Kashima, just $18,000 bike, and I'm in this like $150 offer up Trek.
It was a Trek.
It was a Trek.
At least it was a mongoose.
No, it wasn't a mongoose, but it was absolute garbage, man. It was absolute garbage, and I fought my ass off to keep my.
Do you remember what trail it was?
Yeah, it was it was Arbor Hills. Okay. In the Colony. Okay. And that's a hard technique. It's not a long trail, but it is a rough trail. Okay. It's not an enjoyable trail. Okay. And it's mostly a hiking park, kind of. Yeah. And but they do have this little section that is a Dorba. It's an actual Dorba trail. And dude, I was beat up after riding. Yeah, it was rough, man. It was really jumpy, really rocky, really rooty, lots of like fallen trees, and I just don't have the bike to get over this stuff. For sure. And I am fighting. I got these little wheels. I do not have mountain bike tires at all. Okay. And And I impressed him though. I impressed him, and he's the one who helped get with me and shopped around and kind of coached me on what kind of bike and even helped me out a little bit with the finances. I'll give him the props, man. He helped me out, bro. So I was really privileged in to have that bike, and so it was cool. And then I grew. This was, I could never fathom spending so much money on a bike. So it was a really, I think, like empowering and powerful moment to own this bike.
Yeah.
And so even more so when I met you and having some bikes.
So you went from that trek to that.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like,
wow.
It's like going from a like a Honda, like an old ass Honda Civic to like a Ferrari.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Maybe not. That might be a little bit drastic. Yeah, but you get it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So no, it was really cool, man, and that was a really cool way to start off the friendship that has led to a lot of business as well, between me and you as well. Though.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Business, fun outings. I mean, we've got a lot of cool stuff at this point. So
for sure, bro.
You're in my top echelon of friends at this point.
Absolutely. It's likewise, man. Likewise. I mean, you were at my wedding. And that says a lot, bro. That says a lot. Like, I had my closest friends and family there. You know what I mean? So you being there, then it wasn't for nothing, bro. So cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Absolutely. So what motivated you to? Because obviously, I think you can add a lot of value to the listeners.
Okay.
Because of your experience in the industry that you're in.
For sure.
Whether it's the local market and economy, all the way up to the national market and economy.
Okay.
You've got a lot of experience and lessons you learned. I think that was a really valuable lesson on your appraisal.
Okay.
they want to work like in the loan industry, the finance industry, which oftentimes revolves around real estate, all the way up to title companies, escrow officers, or a builder like yourself. There's such a diverse amount of roles and industries that all tie into this one thing, these residential assets. And I think there's a lot that people can learn from you, man. So what was like the kickoff and the starting point? What made you decide to go this route? And what do you know about starting off, man? Tell me about it.
Okay, so as far as like, the route, you are talking about real estate?
Go ahead and start your own business, your own residential construction company, building company.
Okay.
What you could have done a lot of things.
For sure.
I mean, I know you have a finance background,
Okay.
and you're working for a predominantly local company, and you were successful.
For sure.
So like that wasn't necessarily your experience, right? So what made you decide to go that route? And then like take us from the starting point,
Okay.
and then start walking us through it, from A onward, where where's up, a little bit,
Okay. So how far back do you want me to go?
I don't care, man. How far you want to go, man? Tell them about yourself and how you started.
Okay, cool. I guess let's start with saying that I've always had a huge entrepreneurship spirit. You know what I mean? Always, ever since I was a kid, and that wasn't by accident. You know what I mean? So my parents were entrepreneurs, and so
Sure. You grew up seeing that.
Grew up seeing it. You know what I mean? Grew up living it.
Right.
One thing is seeing it, another thing is really living it. You know what I mean? Very different.
Mm-hmm.
So, I grew up living it, man. And when you grow up in that environment, it's it's very different. You know what I mean? It's very different. It kind of opens your mind up to a lot of different things that a lot of other kids aren't exposed to.
I agree. I was one of them.
For sure. And so, just growing up with that mindset, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know any of that, but I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? And
because of your family.
Because of my family, yeah, of course, man.
Because
exactly. Because being an entrepreneur, it comes with a lot of benefits. It does come with a lot of negatives as well. Especially what it does to the family, and things like that sort, or what it could do to the family. But it came with a lot of benefits, and all of those benefits, I always saw the glass half full, and so I saw these things, and I realized very early on, okay, this is what I want to do.
What are some of those benefits you think?
Well, I mean, obviously controlling your own financial freedom.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I even freedom in general.
For sure.
Time,
For
your schedule.
And being passionate about what you're doing. And doing it for yourself. And it was just something that I always saw. My parents were very passionate people. They were very passionate about their business. They were very you know, it was a matter of seeing the positives in the lifestyle that I was given, and hyper focusing on or maybe not hyper focusing on those positives, but focusing on those positives and then wanting to upgrade the negatives and do better on the negatives.
Sure.
You know? And that life looked really damn good as a child, right? If I could take the positives and improve on the negatives, I think that's a perfect life.
Fair enough.
And so that was kind of the approach that I had as a child. Like, I don't know, that's just kind of what I thought. And
that's cool because I can relate to that in the aspect that I get that completely because I experienced such a complete exact opposite experience growing up. I had such a I grew up with worker bee parents. I don't want to insult them, but think of like industrial steel factory workers, right?
Okay.
It was just this work hard mentality. Get a good job. Right, and my two uncles were the same way. One was a assembly line. He worked for like a Chevrolet manufacturing plant, and then the other one was like ex-military, worked on jet engines, mechanic, electrician, master electrician, engineer. And so these were guys who, my family and the people who raised me were people who worked with their hands, and all of them, from my stepdad, everyone that was kind of present in my life. And I would say those very important years, they taught me work ethic, and they worked hard, and it drove me crazy sometimes. My uncle had such a mechanical mind. He was an excellent mathematician. He took apart a Mitsubishi and that one time because I put a cold air intake on it, sucked up water and hydro-locked the motor. And water does not compress like air. Found some physics out real quick, and so I was screwed. I didn't have the money to fix anything, right? And my uncle said, if you'll buy the rebuild kit, I'll help you rebuild it. I'll help you fix the engine. And me and my mom got together, pulled our money, and we had enough money to buy like a rebuild kit off like eBay at the time or something.
Right.
And this dude, with some painter's tape and a Sharpie, took this thing apart and had like maybe a Chilton manual or something. Yeah. And he put it back together for him. He had never worked on blitzes. And he worked on like Jaguars back in the day. And so, it was fascinating watching him because he'd go, oh, that's interesting. I see how they're doing that now. And he like making these mental notes. Yeah. And he was just such a fascinating guy. But no one had this like work for yourself, very entrepreneurial, mindedness. And I did, and I always felt very out of place. And I would say things and come up with ideas. And
so you feel like you had that, even though
I felt like it was always there. Wow. It was always there, and I
feel like that came from.
I don't know, man. I'd have to really look inward. I think that's another podcast, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that's a long conversation.
Yeah. Like, do you feel like that's like nature or like nurture? Like, what is your opinion? Because me myself, I don't know.
I think a little bit of both, but there was definitely a flame there that I didn't see present in a lot of my family members. That that were extremely intelligent and competent, but most of these people never saw extreme wealth. They might be extremely skilled individuals, right? My uncle, there's so although we lived in Louisiana, my uncle loved Texas. He was like a cowboy, and he became friends with a very wealthy individual in Plano at the time. This is before I moved here, and I visited him, and he built this photography studio. It was a very nice photography studio in the Plano, Frisco area, and they brought him on, and he did it kind of like as a favor. He kind of gets screwed over for his good nature. But he built everything. Aside from laying the foundation, he ran the electrical system himself. He did the plumbing himself. He built it, right? This whole entire really nice photography studio. So he was a man who could build. Right. Nowadays people are so one-dimensional and compartmentalized. You have like these subcontractors, and they do the, you know exactly what I was talking about, right? This guy could do it all, right? If the world ends, dude. Yeah. And he was extremely proficient. But no, like they did not have that spark. And I would say things, and I would get shot down, out of a loving place. Yeah. And no, don't do that. That's risky. Go to school, get a good job, become a doctor, become get a finance degree. Be safe. Right. And so I felt like a odd duck out. I felt like the black sheep, not in a bad way, but just I felt out of place. I didn't belong. And I've talked to my parents since then, and they know. Collin just, they even would say, they would always say this about me, son, you got wine taste with a big budget.
Okay.
And so,
I can see that too.
oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
And it was because huh?
I like what age?
Oh man, early teens.
Okay.
Early teens.
Yeah.
I developed this, desire for, I wanted more. Occasionally, we had this real nice area in Monroe, called the Garden District, and you could see some nice cars and nice houses.
Right.
And I didn't go there all growing up. And once I was old enough to go through that area, I would make mental notes, and eventually I became accustomed to that area. And I'm like, what the hell is going on over here? Why is all these, what the hell? They got everything. Like, how come they got the fucking Ferraris and the Porsche? Like, why don't we have these things?
Yeah.
And I would ask these things, and, it hurt my parents' feelings, or, so, it wasn't from a place of, but I just had this hunger that I didn't see present in a lot of my family members. Or maybe they just never pursued it, and I did. And I was extremely, I was never unhappy, but I was extremely unsatisfied.
For sure.
I had a huge amount of to the point that I'd be fucking mad, like I want to go to war, to do these things and accomplish these things and have these things and be this, someone bigger. I don't want to be here in this place forever. But yeah, no, it's I definitely can relate to, and I would say not envious is not true because I love my family and I appreciate them, and I think having those opposite type of styles of family members, I still love them the same, and I think they gave us probably like similar love and stuff, but it still instilled with me a desire in a different way, more of like seeing different things and then going, I don't know if I want necessarily just this,
right.
And then having a desire to pursue and go find those other things. And in your case, you saw that already there present, that they were developing. And, I would always, I've asked myself, why are my parents not more entrepreneurial or creative and stuff? So, it's questions I've had. But I think that's awesome, man. And that's beautiful. And I know a little bit about your story and your entrepreneurial parents. So, another thing, your parents, that always strikes me is they've done a great job with their happiness, in my opinion, right? Like their relationship and for themselves. And they walk into a room and there's kind of like a warmth energy, and your dad's real, got good, vibes, and kind of like a happy guy, and he's aged real well. He's not even that old, but I mean, yeah, man, like they're the type of couple you look at and you go like, they figured something out.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. I'm very proud of that. You know what I mean? Like, and it's something that, I aim to replicate.
Sure.
I aim to replicate. So, realistically speaking, I still have that same model, right? That model as a child. It's like, hey, take the positives and improve the negatives. You know what I mean? And that's still me. So for sure. But I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of what they're able to accomplish. And not just what they're able to accomplish, but how they were able to go about doing it. You know what I mean? Working together as a team, working together. Always having like a good marriage. I mean, obviously things aren't going to be, unicorns and rainbows at all times, and they definitely weren't. But regardless, they stood together. You know what I mean? And ultimately, that was at the core, right?
Yes.
And I'm very grateful for that, man. I feel like that taught me a lot. You know what I mean? And so I do realize that I have that advantage at the end of the day. You know what I mean? I have even just my parents being together to this day. That is a huge advantage. And so I just want to be able to take that and be able to, improve upon it. You know what I mean? Like that's my number one goal.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So clearly they instilled this, flame in you, and seeing them, step out in this type of way in a more risky entrepreneurial small business type of, mindset that they instilled in you and had. I can see why you went this route.
Yeah.
But of all the, as far as the entrepreneurial route specifically, but specifically the residential construction and building.
Yeah.
Right. So then after, so this led you to there, right? And then, so then when you were in this position to make a decision and go this entrepreneurial small business route, you could have, opened a coffee shop, you could have done a lot of things, right? So what led you, did you do a bunch of research? What led you to decide real estate and then decide residential construction / building? how did that process go in your
Yeah,
head?
for sure. So, I said, what I said about, the upbringing that I had, only to say that from a very early age, I knew that, entrepreneurship is something that I wanted to pursue.
Sure.
Right. And so with that said, whenever, it's going to sound real corny, but, I'm a firm believer in, speaking things into existence, and just having that idea.
Yeah.
The way my analogy of that is, if you speak to something into its existence, or rather you have that thought in your mind that this is what I want to do, or this is what I want to accomplish, it allows your mind to understand what that door looks like, what that room looks like, right?
Sure.
Once you get there.
Yes.
And so, doors open every single day, for people. And, I think I firmly believe that that's true. I think doors open every single day for people, and I think that sometimes there's some people that don't take those that opening of that door, because they don't recognize it. They don't know. They don't understand. They're not comfortable with change. They're not comfortable with, they don't even understand what it looks like.
Sure, I think that's key too. There's like a focusing of that, right? When you're speaking something into existence, you're also like you're focusing on that thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was Denzel who maybe said this, or a prominent, successful, individual. They said, if you're always looking for a red car, you're gonna see them everywhere.
You can see them everywhere.
See them everywhere.
You're gonna see them everywhere.
Yeah.
You learn a new word, all of a sudden you hear it everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of the same, very similar thing. Right?
Definitely.
Definitely. If you tell yourself at an early age, hey, I'm going to be this,
Mm-hmm.
it's much more likely you're going to be it, just because of the fact that you recognize what that door looks like and what that room looks like. And when you do, you're going to want to go in there. You're going to want to without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's kind of why I mentioned the whole upbringing and my parents and things of that sort. And you just kind of always have this idea, man. I mean, ever since I was literally, 5th, 6th grade, I just kind of
just entrepreneurial or like real estate?
Just entrepreneurs. No, not real estate. I had no idea what real estate was. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
my parents owned one house. And,
Yeah.
And that was it. So
Yeah.
it wasn't. They were not.
It was kind of a romanticized thing for you as a young guy, though, is seeing them with their own business.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For
Yeah.
sure.
That's a beautiful thing, though.
But only because I wanted to improve on the negatives.
Sure.
And of course, we received the positives, but I wanted to improve on the negatives. I wanted to, there was this life that I was, introduced to, and so I just wanted to, make the negatives better, and that would have been a fulfilling life for me. So yeah, man. But first things first, I college was something that was very, very well. It almost seemed like that was what I needed to do.
College.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It seemed like college was something that I needed to do. It seemed like every time anybody spoke about success, college was in the mix.
Yeah.
It just seemed like it for us.
There was a lot of cultural and social pressure too.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. 1,000%.
Yeah.
We all felt that. We're very we're the same age pretty much.
Sure.
And so we felt that. We felt that pressure.
Mm.
And so that was just something that I always kind of knew that I was going to do, right?
Sure.
I was going to go to school.
Sure.
I was going to get my degree.
Mm.
I was going to, get a good position, a good job, maybe, get a couple of promotions, and then I was going to save enough money to then start my own business, whatever that was going to be. It didn't matter if it was going to be a distillery, if it was going to be, a music studio. It didn't matter, right?
Sure.
All I knew is that I wanted to own my own business.
And what was your degree in that you chose?
So I ultimately chose to do, actually, whenever I first started college, I wanted to be an architect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there was already a little bit of a
deviation.
but towards the same area
for sure.
already. Yeah,
For
okay. Interesting.
So
So that's interesting, okay.
yeah. So
And then what changed about
okay,
it?
so the architect thing was just man, it was honestly kind of stupid,
Mhm.
right? The reason why I wanted to go into architecture.
Was it a girl or something?
Nah, I wasn't a girl or anything like that. It wasn't that stupid. But I've always had like a huge. I've always been a very artsy person. Man.
Sure.
I've just always appreciated art, any forms of art. At a very early age, I discovered this little album book in my house that my mom had. That was essentially a bunch of letters that my uncle would send to her and to us from jail. And every single letter he would draw something on a letter, right? Or he would drawing and then attach it to the letter, right? And so my mom saved all of them. She put them on a little album book.
Okay.
And then one day I came across this little album book and I was like, holy shit, like this is awesome. Like these are some really cool ass roses. These are some really cool hearts and all these like freaking the prison tattoo type of depictions, right?
Yeah, but it stirred something in you.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah.
From an early age, I was like, holy shit. I was like, it's like I realized that somebody was doing these.
Yeah.
And I was like, how come I can't do that? Like,
Yeah.
I should be able to do that. I want to do that. I want to replicate that. Like, my mom obviously valued it so much to put it on the album book. Like, I wouldn't be able to do that. And so I took it upon myself, man, to, like, replicate every single one of the drawings on that book. Literally every single one, man.
That's
so
dope,
I would go through the entire book. I would.
Were you tracing or were you just looking at it?
Hell no, I wasn't tracing, bro. No, come on.
Yeah, I am.
And so,
you said replicate.
And so, hey, a real artist isn't tracing.
Okay,
so,
okay.
No, every single one I was freehanding, bro. I would take a look at it and I would freehand it, right?
Yeah,
I was freehanding every single one. They were shitty compared to these drawings.
Sure,
very
sure,
shitty.
Kid.
But I got good at it, bro.
Yeah.
I got really good at it. I mean, 5th grade, everybody knew me as a guy that, drew really well. And I would even like draw little pictures for girls and stuff like that.
I can definitely see you doing that. I can see you doing that.
Yeah, man, that was art was a big thing. So, going back to your question though, it was.
So
how did I get into real
How did you get into it?
Right?
Yeah, I want to touch on something that makes me think.
Yeah.
So when I was that same age, it's so different. So how different I am in this aspect. So I couldn't draw for shit.
Okay.
But I liked to draw.
Yeah.
And so, but I was so business minded, and I would in like the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, same age range as you. I would Dragon Ball Z was like super Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z, right? Those were the things. Yeah. And so I would trace these like really good Dragon Ball Z photos of like Gohan and Goku and stuff. And I would sell them for like a quarter, 50 cents, Yeah. And I would sell quite a few pictures, like on the playground. Me and my buddy were doing it, and like I get enough for like a few snacks and stuff. And so that was so funny because it was like I look at it and I can see that entrepreneurial kind of thing there tied into whatever passion it could kind of bubble out on.
For sure.
And but it was so stupid because the pictures sucked and they were all tracing, and if I could convince someone I hadn't traced it, I could sell it for more. So
bro, kids were suckers back then.
Oh yeah, I was a sucker back then, man. I mean, there's no judgment. So yeah, but going back, what I'm doing is I'm trying to follow your thought process into what made this decision to go this route.
Yeah, for sure.
So obviously college. And you switched from architecture to...
Yeah, I switched from architecture. Okay, so I didn't get to, that was the question. So I didn't get to why I went to architecture. So like I said, I had a big, I loved art, right? That was my thing. Art was my thing. And so my parents at the time, they were making a move to go into a new building, right? So what they were doing at the time is
like expanding or something?
They were expanding. They owned an event center, right? They would host Sweet 16s, quinceañeras, weddings, things of that sort, corporate events. And so they were in the phase of moving on to a new building, right? A bigger building, expand the business. And so in doing so, they hired an architect, right? So we went to the architect's office. I was young, man. I was very young. And so being in that architect office, I got to see a lot of do actual drawings of buildings, right? Actual drawings of site plans and things of that sort. For anybody listening that doesn't know what a site plan is. A site plan is essentially, an aerial view of the building and the lot itself. And so I saw these drawings, man, actual drawings, and I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. Yeah. This is what I want to do. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, this is only because I saw the art aspect of it. Little did I know that, once I got, in college, nobody was doing anything back then. I mean, it was all computerized, it was, CAD, all these things. And so it was.
How long were you?
Like literally. Okay, so first of all,
one semester.
Yeah. So not even your first semester, you had to choose classes that maybe you were kind of interested in, but for the most part, they were going to be core classes.
A lot of them were core, yeah.
Exactly, and so
you could still switch. You can
for sure. So I took one business class, and once I was in that class, I was like, "This is it."
The business. Yeah.
Architect, and plus, not only that, man, that was in 2011. 2011. So even in 2011, things had not fully recovered from 2007, 2008,
Sure.
2009 crash.
Yeah.
And so jobs for an architect.
Were you plugged into that at that time? Like, was it
A
something
little
you were
bit,
super aware
a
of?
little bit,
Yeah.
not a whole lot. You know, I learned about it in college. I learned about it a little bit in high school. We touched on it, you know, and of course, like my parents kind of like lived through it, but it didn't impact me nowhere near, you know, what it impact people, you know, other people, right? I was still a young kid.
Yeah, we didn't really feel. I mean, we're in such a small town where I was from. It wasn't really, you know. But I dove into that so ferociously later on after college.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very interesting time, man. What happened was crazy. But,
You know, and you were in college. I feel like because I have this love-hate relationship with client,
Yeah.
you know, college. I have several friends who college has benefited them well.
Sure.
It's treated them well. It's been an asset,
Yeah.
and it's elevated them to pursue, you know, these specific careers and things.
Yeah.
Clearly, you're one of them. I was the opposite though, right? So, you know, I was dropped out, right? You know, I found myself, I was business, and after I was like going to be pre-med, and I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. Oh no, I'm going to be a PA, a nurse practitioner, PR. I'm going to be, okay, screw that, I'm going to be a nurse. Actually, whatever, I'm just going to make money and do business, right?
Sure.
And I found myself my sophomore and junior year, like arguing with all my economics professors, you know, hating a lot of my like math classes that just didn't seem to be very beneficial. It's like, dude, I can count money. What am I doing here? You know, and at one point I found the only class giving me real value was my psychology class. And after I left, because I thought microeconomics was very beneficial and made complete sense to me. And I'm the kind of guy who, you know, I'm not very agreeable. I can be very disagreeable. And so when you tell me something, I might take you at your word, but I typically go research, right?
Sure.
And that's just who I am. And I found myself, you know, going home, doing my own research, and like Google and YouTube were all like starting to become like really big things at the time. And I found myself, you know, researching everything I'm being told, like Keynesian economic theory and things of that, and just disagreeing strongly and going back in, arguing with my professors, then not really being able to, you know, debate me, and finding myself going like, what the hell is going on here? You know, you can't, like, you're my professor, you should be able to, like, you know, it wasn't to disprove them, it was like, I have these very questions, like I'm studying all these other economic theories, Austrian economics, you know, the Keynesian seems a little full of shit, and this is what you're teaching me, so like, can you answer these questions? And then like tiptoe around or not know, you know, and I'm like, what the hell? And so, you know, it compounded, and finally the breaking point was, I think I've told you this before, the breaking point was I was going to school full time and running a assistant manager at a Nissan dealership. I'm working like a full week. I'm working Monday through Saturday minus one. I would get one day off during the week that I negotiated to go to school full time, and then I would go to school in the evenings 3 other days out of the week. But I was still hitting a full schedule while working fucking car dealership hours. Yeah. And this cap came in, I was like 22, and he was 28, and he sat down for an interview. He's like, yeah, I'm struggling with a job, times are rough, economic collapse. And I started interviewing. They're like, hey, what's your, you know, you have a degree, what's your experience? Like, oh, I used to be like a big time like sales executive for Budweiser, you know, they downsized, not doing so hot. And I said, wow, really? Okay. And you know, it turns out he has a degree in business, what I'm trying to get. And I'm sitting across the table from him like I am now, interviewing him. And he's got 6-7 years on me, and he's sitting in front of me needing me to hire him for a job. Yeah. And I thought to myself, I'm killing myself working full time to get the degree that this guy has, and he can't get a fucking job. And he's sitting in front of me to get a car sales deal. And I said, I think I need to reassess some things. Yeah,
for sure. That's crazy, man. So that's a crazy perspective. You know what I mean? I mean, I 100%, you know, understand why you would have felt what you felt.
I think a lot of people in my shoes would have probably done the same thing.
Absolutely.
Like, what the fuck? This doesn't make sense to me.
Doesn't make no sense.
Yeah, there's got to be a better way to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I didn't have that experience at all, man.
No, absolutely not.
I didn't have that experience at all, man. So, like, I mean, literally, like, I went through. I mean, first of all, I wasn't, you know, challenging my professors to any kind of shit. That's for sure. Honestly, man, college was kind of like, fuck, man, I fucked off a little bit. You know what I mean?
Who doesn't?
Fucked off a little bit.
Who doesn't?
I was focused on working on my car. I was hyper focused on. I was just like, I became a big car guy, man. It's one thing about me, man, is I have like an obsessive personality.
Yeah, I think we share that a little bit.
And so whenever I get into something, bro, I dive fucking deep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I deep.
Yeah.
You know, I want to know what the fucking deep end of whatever it is that I'm into.
Yeah.
I want to know what that looks like, man. I want to know what those people look like. I want to know, I want to know everything about it on the deep end. You know what I mean? Fuck the shallow.
Kind of a blessing and a curse.
It's
yeah.
It's a blessing and a fucking curse,
Yeah,
bro, for sure. And so, at that time, man, I was diving deep into just working on my car, man. It was a big car guy. I was just a big fucking car junkie. And that's what I was doing. But, so I didn't take college as serious as I probably should have. You know what I mean? But ultimately, man, it still, like, worked out really fucking well for me.
It's clearly benefited you.
Really fucking well for me. I think it taught me a lot of great fucking lessons that, I still hold near and dear. And then on top of that, man, I mean, okay, so I'll tell you this story real quick. I remember one day I'm walking into class, right? And everybody, I started looking left and right, and I started noticing people are wearing like fucking suits and shit.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? Like, why is everybody dressed up? And so I ended up asking one of my buddies, I was like, hey man, like, you know what's going on? Like, why are all these people dressed up? Like, like it's fucking Thursday. And he was like, it's, the job fairs today.
Oh, it was a job fair.
Job fair. I'm
Yeah,
like, dude, I'm like,
nobody told me.
I was like, hey, who you talking about today? And he was like, sure, it's today. And I'm like, oh God. I'm like, I didn't realize, right?
Yeah.
And so I fucking jet home, haul ass, get home, print out, 15 resumes, 15 little business cards, man. My presentation was key. Everybody, I didn't have all these freaking, all this other crap that, these, other people had, but my presentation was key. Right?
Sure.
And so I printed out 15 resumes, 15 little business cards, put my little suit on, drove to school, got a
business cards.
Yeah, the little business card. Right? That went along with my resume. Again, it's things that's kind of set you apart.
At the time.
It's things that set you apart, man. Nobody else had business cards.
No shit, yeah.
Like, that's just
no
the truth. And I had little business cards. I had little, resumes that I had printed out. And I get to the job fair, things go okay. And then the very last person that I ended up meeting was a job recruiter for, Apex Capital.
Okay.
Apex Capital was a capital financing firm. They work with like small to mid-size trucking companies at the time. Right now they work with huge trucking companies.
Yeah, scaled up. They've scaled up.
They've scaled up, yeah, significantly. And so I handed out my resume. I got her information, and then maybe 2-3 weeks later, I get a offer letter for the amount that I was looking for.
Let's go.
Maybe like $2,000-3,000 under. So I'm like, well, fuck yeah, Plus
close enough.
They were promising some really great things.
Yeah. And
so I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. And so that from 4 years of college, 4 years of knowledge, 4 years of understanding networking and things of that sort, and the importance of those things.
Yeah.
And then plus so obviously business curriculum, and then getting to where I haven't even graduated. It's probably like August. So this was the first job fair. There's 2 job fairs. One in like August. One in like one in the fall. One in the spring. This was the one in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately I had a job by the fall.
Like before I
graduated.
Yeah. But that seems like, so I would say, and I might be wrong, but I would say you found yourself in a prime position, because it feels like at that time, around that time, that was the height of like the traditional, the peak of the traditional.
Well, I didn't know it was the height at the time.
No, of course you didn't. But I get that's the feeling I get looking back and looking at because I have a very different perspective of what college is now and what it can offer now, and it feels very lacking.
For sure.
It feels very lacking, and it feels like it's becoming that was like the traditional route, and had become like the mainstream route. You didn't have a lot of whole options, right? There was not a whole lot of diverse options to move forward on. And college was like, I felt the pressure.
It's like what you needed to do.
It was like high school. It was like, oh, you just go to college now, right?
Yeah.
And coming from someone who,
it was grade 13, grade 14, like it's just what you need to do.
Yeah, but I felt, I was in the same position as you, but from a different, obviously, I did not have the backing, the finances, parents who could afford it, scholarships, I was turned down. I had like great test scores in some areas, but not the best in others.
Okay.
I had like a great ACT, which is like the Louisiana version of the SAT.
For
I had a solid ACT score, a really good one, and I took it the summer before my freshman year of high school.
Okay.
I scored before any high school. I scored a great score on my ACT, and it was like done.
For sure.
And
Okay,
so
hold your thought. I need to.
okay, go ahead. All right, guys. Sorry about that. A little bathroom break.
Okay, so you were talking about your college experience.
Yeah, I was just trying to make the point that it feels like college is very different, and I have a very controversial perspective that it feels like college is kind of on the way out.
For sure.
If they don't get their shit together.
For sure. No, I definitely saw that, man. I saw that with a lot of friends. I saw that even with some family. But like I said, man.
But it served its purpose for you.
It did. It for sure did. That was my goal exact. I obviously knew that entrepreneurship it's a risky thing. It's a risky environment. You know what I mean?
You felt like college meshed well with your entrepreneurial desires, or do you think it was more of a strategy to get a good job?
No.
Don't really think for yourself. Did it, or do you think it meshed, it integrated well with your entrepreneurial, desires and perspectives?
No, it 100% integrated well.
Integrated well.
Yes,
Fed into that.
I was in the college of business, you know what I mean? And every single one of them in there, they were entrepreneurs. They were entrepreneurs at the heart, you know what I mean? And like probably one of the best fucking lessons that I can, that I got from college was there was this like little like program, little like group that I ended up joining, like my third or fourth maybe year. And I remember them telling me like, hey man, so like you might not have all of the ideas, you know what I mean? All of the great ideas might not come from you. They might come from the engineering building. That's going to be, more than likely where those ideas are going to come from.
Sure.
But what you got to do is you got to go meet those people. And you got to go make those friends and make those connections. You know what I mean? Because with your expertise in business and their ideas, you can make a lot of shit happen. And so
I wish I'd gone to your college.
You know what I mean? And so that
I didn't get those.
Basically, what they're saying is network, man. Because at the end of the day, like you might not.
Well, I got that.
I
got a little bit of that. Yeah, the job fair network.
For sure. And so a lot of I didn't have that mindset.
That's such a shallow place to learn how to do that, though. It's like I'm going to pay up tens of $10,000s to learn how to network. I can do that.
No, 100%. So that comes to the second point. So I got a Maverick Promise.
I don't know what that
and
is.
So, in Arlington at UTA, University of Texas Arlington, they have a program called the Maverick Promise, and they hand it to certain kids that are like in the top 10%. They meet a certain criteria, right? Which I met that criteria. I knew about that criteria, and so I was working towards that criteria, right? Not to say I was this fucking like super smart kid in high school or anything. Honestly, I thought high school was super easy.
Right.
I thought it was fucking stupid. I thought it was easy.
Right.
And I would definitely like fuck off a lot, right?
Sure.
But it was to the point where I knew, hey, what the goal was. I knew what I needed to do. And so I got the Maverick Promise. I got the Maverick Promise. I got like the
which is what?
Which was like a full ride.
It's like a scholarship.
Yeah. It's
okay.
A full ride to UTA.
That's cool. Oh, dude, if I'd gotten that, I would have fucking done it too.
And not only
are there just stipulations you have to meet to keep it? Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
I know exactly.
You gotta have certain. You gotta go full time. You gotta remain a certain grade. Things. Very easy things to do. In reality.
I just never. I never qualified from a low income household. It was really weird.
Low income qualifies for a lot, man. Low
income
qualifies for like the Pell Grant, the Texas Grant.
Yeah, but I was told when I walked in, oh well, you're at the threshold. Like my combined parents' income was at the threshold. It was right above anything that meets it. And then I go to my parents and I go, hey, they say y'all make enough money to pay for my college. And my parents are like, what?
Oh, that sucks.
It's like, there's no way. And I mean, to give you an idea, at the time, I think my parents both made in the teens an hour. Not a lot of money. Like even like low teens, mid teens, not a lot of money at all. And it's like, we've got 2 kids in a house and cars. And, it's like, we're just, we got to Outback every once in a while, and it's a big deal. We weren't poor, but it was like, it was just such an odd perspective.
Middle class.
Yeah, so I walk in. I'd like to really move on to my question though, but I would just say, it's interesting because you had a positive perspective.
Mhm.
Mine was bad, and I could sit here and talk about, like, I walked into the student loan building, and it's like, oh yeah, just sign here. What's the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized? Oh, don't worry, you want both. It's like and it was just a complete and total. It was a Ponzi scheme in my opinion. Not a Ponzi, but it was not right. It was not right to do to a young person
For sure.
who's feeling all these social pressures.
Yeah.
And somehow, it's like I worked the whole time just to support myself, not to pay for my. It's like I couldn't do both. It was crazy, man. So 30-something $1,000s in student loans to go to something that, again, I would say my only two benefits were my macroeconomics and my psychology courses.
For sure.
I don't think I got anything else out of that except fear. I mean, and just watching my debt pile up and getting sick to my stomach, going like, how am I going to?
You get student loan debt?
Yeah. I'm thinking to myself, because that was the only way I could afford to go to college. And I've had those type of it's weird because, and then I go and sit down with people these days, and now I look a little nicer and I dress a little nicer, and all these assumptions are made about me, and I'm white and stuff like that. So it's like, you're so privileged. And it's like, man, everyone has their struggles, man.
Sure.
And I think looks only get you so far regardless.
Yeah.
So, it was really interesting it's interesting to see your perspective. And then I have got a friend, from the same state, a white guy, right?
Yeah.
Similar experience as yours, right? Very similar, who would side more with you, right? So it's so uniquely different how it's so uniquely down to that individual's perspective. But anyway, man, I don't want to do the whole life story, but I really want to know, what was like the deciding factor, line in the sand, in just a short amount of words that made you decide, when you were sitting there trying to make a decision and you were going to leave this finance company and strike out on your own and start your own company, right? Like, what was it that what's like, if you could just summarize it in a brief synopsis, like, what was that thought process? Why? And, what was going through your head? Was there like an aha moment? Was there an eureka moment where you sat down, or did you do a bunch of research and did it kind of all come to you? Did you have a freaking dream at night? What was it? Did someone sit you down and go, do real estate, Joseph? Did you have a mentor? What was it, man? I'm curious. I don't know. I'm curious.
So I'll be quick on the rest of the story. So I go to college. I buy my first house 8 months after getting my first job out of college.
Sure.
Even that job, they didn't even know that I hadn't graduated college, because remember, this was in August. I didn't graduate until May. And then I got the job somewhere, like, I think it was after May. I think it was right around May, but I still had like 2 classes that I needed to take in the summer. And so I was essentially still going to college and working my first out of college job.
Okay, wow, yeah.
So anyways, 8 months later, I realized, like, hey, I wanted to buy my house, right? At that point, I had seen my brother purchase his first home, and honestly, that was something that really changed his life. You don't have to get into that, but it literally changed his life.
For the better.
So for the better.
Cool.
And so I saw that.
So I want a house.
I want to do the same.
Yeah.
I want to do the same. I want to, build. I want to have an asset. I want to do the same. And so I saved up some money. I was living at home while I was working my job. And maybe 8-9 months later, I found a realtor, and everybody told me at that time, hey, it's going to take you 6 months to find a home, so just be patient. And me and my wife now, obviously just girlfriend at the time, we were out looking for homes. We met a realtor. Second day, we found the house. We put an offer in the third day. By the 4th or maybe 5th day, we accepted the offer, right? And so I made that investment very early on, and then ultimately my parents sold their business. I was always involved in their business. Always had 2 jobs, working my corporate job, helping them out, bettering the business, growing the business. And they sold the business, and they wanted to build a house, and so I got really involved into the process of building said house. Right.
Okay.
As soon as I got
Also, like, were you working with like the contractors and the subcontractors?
So no, this was in the initial phases.
Okay.
We were in the information gathering phase.
Okay. Like shopping around builders and.
Kind of sort of even before that, right? So
Okay.
we had a friend of ours, a friend of my parents, very, very good friend of them, of theirs, that had built his home, right,
Okay.
from scratch. Right? He's a contractor. He does stucco and stuff. Right?
Okay.
And so he's been in the trade for a very long time.
Family friend.
At this point, you can say, yeah, family friend. He's not actual family, but
Sure,
he's
yeah.
a very, very close friend of my father.
Okay.
And so he built his own home, and so we went to go take a look at his house, and we had a meeting with him and the general contractor that he used to help him build the house.
Okay.
And so the general contractor and him gave us all this information as to everything that kind of, how they went about building the house, right?
Mm.
And I went to this meeting just to kind of interview the first GC, interview the first, potential builder of this house.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever we did that, man, I remember just thinking to myself, like, leaving that meeting, thinking like, I could do this. Like,
Man, that's exactly what I was just
this is
thinking
not
too.
even that fucking hard.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this shit seems very easy. Like, so at the job that I was doing at the time, it was still the same job that I got right after the job fair. It was still Apex, and again, I told you Apex worked with small to mid-sized trucking companies.
Sure.
I had no idea what the fuck the trucking industry even looked like. I got hired.
When you got hired,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? I didn't know what the trucking industry was. I didn't know
What,
any of it.
was that job not really like living up to your expectations?
It's
or-
not that I wasn't living up to my expectations, man, but I always knew that it was just a stepping stone.
Okay, that's
You know
fair.
what I mean? It was just a stepping stone. It didn't matter what the fuck it was. It could have been in selling mangoes.
A means to
You know
an
what I mean?
end.
If it meant getting me where I needed to be and establishing my base, and that's what it was going to be at, it didn't matter, right? And so 4
fair.
years after being in that job, 4.5 years. of
That's-
being
you were
at that
there
job,
for 4.5
it was
years?
about 4.5 years. 4.5 years later, I can hold any conversation with just about anybody to this day about the trucking industry.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so 4.5 years did that to me.
Mhm.
In the industry that, I got exposed to every single day.
Mhm.
Like I could essentially do the same thing with any industry.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of wanting to put that work in and attain that knowledge.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so whenever I had that meeting with that first general contractor, a little light bulb went off.
So this was the inspiration in the moment, right?
This was the moment.
There was like some building up and shopping around and helping with them.
There wasn't even no shopping around. That was like literally the first guy.
Oh, really?
That was the first conversation we've ever had.
And so you walked
The only
away.
conversation.
You walked away from this conversation thinking, I can do that.
Yeah.
Right? And so did you know then you were going to go into this? Or was that like a seed being planted?
It's like I knew.
It's like you knew.
It's like I knew.
That's interesting.
It's like I knew. It's like something in my mind was like, hey, like
So this
is
was the
what you
moment.
do. Because again, bro, remember, like, if you recognize what these doors look like,
Mhm.
right? So I know you said like concise, but there was a lot that led up to this point, and a lot of reasons why I felt the way I felt after that moment, after that meeting, right? It was all these doors that I in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
I knew what they looked like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that meeting was just me opening these doors
Yeah.
and going into these rooms and
Yeah.
realizing I can live here.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
I think this is such an enlightening moment that they're not going to teach you about in college, and that short of a mentor, it's almost spiritual, right? It's like you're having this experience, and you can't even put your finger on it, but something inside of you is telling you like this is right?
Sure.
Like you're seeing you're saying like you're seeing these doors open in your head, right? I've had these experiences, and it's almost exciting. There's some kind of exciting energy going on inside of you, that in your spirit or in your mind, and I think there is a talent and a skill to knowing and recognizing that when those things present themselves to you.
Sure.
And so I think that ability really separates someone like yourself from someone who's just as competent and just as intelligent, has just as many opportunities. But to be able to recognize when you're feeling this, there's almost like this sense, right? Like the sixth sense or something, this business, instinct, right? And alarms are going off, right? In a good way. So that's really interesting because it's something that I think it's hard to teach, and you typically don't know it until afterwards, right? And usually afterwards it's either too late or you're sitting where you're sitting right now going like, holy shit, like I saw it, I knew what it was, and now I recognize it, and you get better, right? You get better, and like these things are going to present themselves again, and that feeling's going to come back, and you go, oh shit, there it is. Yeah, it's cool, man.
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's a really cool experience. Well, okay, so that was like the aha moment, and I think that's a really unique thing, man. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So it is it's such a valuable thing, I think, for someone who is probably in your shoes where you were, let's say in college or where I was at, where you're really struggling and you're trying to find yourself and figure out like, what is my route? So I think there's so much value that you can add to someone who's maybe wanting to pursue that route. And it's powerful, man. And these are those things that you can't always put in a textbook.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And do you think there's something in you that just goes like, I'm going to take action on this? Or do you think there's something trained about you? Or do you think it was just something about yourself, like who you were as a person, who you would become, that gave you maybe the courage to act on what you were feeling, or that energy that you were kind of, recognizing in that moment and going like, holy shit, this is right. Like this is the doors are opening in my mind.
That's a good question, man. I don't
It's hard, right?
I don't know.
Like how do you teach someone to know when that that moment is?
To be honest with you, I don't know.
It's hard, isn't
I
it?
don't know. I'm on that journey.
Yeah.
I'm on that journey. I'm on that journey to learn. You know what I mean? I'm on that journey to learn, and not necessarily like for any kind of like, better knowledge of myself. Like, yeah, of course, like I do want better knowledge of myself as much as possible, but really be able to replicate that. And
Yeah.
Be able to replicate that in my kids.
100%.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I'm on that search. But
That's
for me to be able to give you that answer nice and concise right now.
No, that's okay. So I think there's something else that you're really good at, Joseph. And so this is our wild introduction podcast. So you told me full range, right? So I think you have a good balance of professionalism and a business mindset.
Yeah.
And how you conduct yourself, and balancing that with a wilder, funner, more outgoing side, right? You're willing to have fun. You're willing to go do experiences. And, I think that's important, right? To have a good balance there. And I think a lot of people lack that. I think a lot of people are like all in it one way or the other, right? Like they're very stuffy, you know what I'm saying? And then they pop like balloons and all of a sudden they're like snorting lines of cocaine on their, you know what I'm saying? And like losing their fucking minds. Or you're just like, you're just too wild and you never quite get to hone it in. And you strike me as someone who has found you're passionate, you've definitely got a fucking wild side, you know what I'm saying? But you've kind of put the reins on it a bit. And so kind of when to let the fucking wildness out and and how to utilize that for success in business, whether it's fitness, mountain bike riding. And, I think those are really good traits. Do you think that that's who you are, or is this something you've cultivated in yourself? I see people who struggle with that all the time. I won't name names, but I know people who are great people, but they really struggle with that balance, And so like how do you manage that balance? And was that something that you always kind of had a knack for, or is it something that you had to work on and cultivate in discipline?
That's a good question, man. So I think that I've always had just a little bit of it. Just like a little bit of it was nature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for sure, I've gotten to work on it over the years and try to, I'm still working on it.
We always are.
I'm still working on it, and I'm still working on that balance. And every single year, there's more responsibilities. Every single year, there's more to add to the plate. Right?
Sure.
That's this balancing act, right? What it looks like, how much you're balancing. It's always evolving. It's always changing.
No doubt.
So I'm always constantly working on it. But yeah, man, I guess, the first thing that comes to mind, bro, whenever you mention this was like, I was that kid in high school, in middle school, and elementary school that knew just how much to get into shit without necessarily getting into You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I had a friend like that.
And so I was always that kid that just understood how to ride that fine line.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's an area that I thrive in in life.
Yeah.
It's just riding that fine line between, you know, how much can you really do?
Yeah.
Right? It's that little bit of pressure, that little bit of, it's something that I've always craved, and it's something that I like. It's a place that I like to be in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the balance between chaos and structure, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's
You know, I
interesting.
don't know. And so I've always I've always enjoyed that. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know. I've been the kid that wants to learn just as much as all the little nerdy kids did, you know, in school, but I also wanted to be just as reckless as some of the reckless kids. I don't know. I just liked it all. I appreciated everybody for everything that they can bring. I just wanted the same combination of everything. I really know what it was.
I think it's Grant Cardone, and I always think about this. I want to say, you know, not everybody likes him. He can be a little, you know, too much sometimes. But I think he said something like, you know, it's better to have to figure out how to rein it in than have to figure out how to get it up. You know what I'm saying? I think that's a funny. You can take that a lot of different ways, but you know, I think that goes a long way. And you know, I look at you know, guys like yourself and people that, you know, I have gravitated to for certain reasons, and I can see like a like-mindedness or a kindred spirit in that way. Like we're very different in a lot of ways, but I recognize like when someone's got that flame. You know what I'm saying? It might be different, and you know, it might be different passions and, you know, different demeanor. But you know, some people, I always wonder to myself deep down, like, is this something that you can instill in someone, or is it something that you just either have or you don't? Because I see people walking around, it's like they're fucking NPCs or something. It's like they're not there, you know. And I've talked to people like, you know, at parties, or everybody's a little intoxicated, and it's like, you know, I know people who really actually think like a portion of the world's population are just like fake. They're like NPCs. Like they're just there to take up space. You know, I don't know if that's actual real, but it feels like that sometimes, man. Like, you know, like during COVID or, you know, all of these different times, sometimes people just, you know, unquestionably just lay down and don't really have their own thoughts and opinions, whether it's politics or culture and stuff. You see a lot of that nowadays, right? It's like, you know, I can throw a fucking coin and hit someone who's going to parrot the same things, right? And they're not going to have these very nuanced conversations. And so I always I think about this sometimes, like late at night, if I'm like just chilling. It's like, because I want to help people, and I want to be able to like mentor, you know, young men and young women who have that, you know, desire to be more, and I want to be able to give back. And I ask myself, this is something, one of the questions I ask myself is like, can I instill this in someone, or is it just gotta have it or do I gotta be good at filtering, you know, what that looks like at a young age, and maybe they haven't figured out how to rein it in. You know what I'm saying? I'm curious what you think about all of that. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know, man. I'm hopeful that you can.
Yeah. It would be nice, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I hope like everyone has a flame and you can't flame it.
Yeah.
You can fan the flame, right?
Sure.
You know, but part of me fears that some people just don't, you know, no matter how much you add wood on the fire, you know, if there's no flame, if there's no ember.
Yeah, man. So like the older that I'm getting, you know, the closer I'm getting to, you know, wanting to be a father.
Mm-hmm.
The more I just want to believe. I don't know if it's for my own benefit, but I want to believe that you can teach it. You know, I want to believe that everybody does have that flame. You just have to, you know, kind of, you know, help build upon it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I do want to believe that.
I would like to as well.
really strongly want to believe
I would
that.
like to as well.
And again, I don't know if that's for my own personal interest, you know. Yeah, for sure. But I do want to believe that, and so you know, I don't think that I'm ever going to get to a point where I have a child and I think, oh, he just doesn't got it. You know, I don't.
You never give up on your own kid.
No, for sure.
Yeah, you're not that
For
type
sure.
of person.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like if I'm going to really believe that, then I got to believe it fully, and not just and not just half-ass, right? Not just believe in it when it comes to my children, but believe in it for everyone, right? And I think that alone kind of gives you a different outlook on life with people and friends and family and what they're going through.
I would like to say I think you're right, and I choose to believe that as well. But I do try to practice. I do try to practice trying to recognize when I feel like maybe they do still have it, but for whatever reason they're just not. You know, you can only lead a horse to water, right?
Oh,
So
absolutely.
you know, I've had a lot of friends, and I've had friends who are mentoring people as well. And I've seen this many times where, you know, they pour into these people, and you know, it's like nothing good comes from it,
No,
right?
sure.
You know, the owner of this podcast or of the studio is a great guy and has mentored me, and he's got a really interesting story. You know, and that was one of the first episodes I did was with him, and he took on a young guy, and was mentoring him, bought him a car, you know, like a little Subaru or whatever, to try to help him get a job and things of that nature, right? And you know, really poured into this young man and tried to help him out, right, a lot. And you know, I won't go into it too much, but because of the, I'd say, cultural influences on this young man, and you know, other aspects, whether he had the flame or didn't, you know, my friend got taken severe advantage of. You know, I mean, we would take this kid mountain bike riding with us, trying to get him excited and you know, on fire for life and business and success. And you know, the relationship fell apart, and the final straw was my friend invested a lot of money in this kid. I mean, bought him an actual, you know, like my parents didn't buy me a car.
Right.
You know, it was like, you know, we got to go save up for your college, not much. And if you want to be able to work, you know, do you want to go to college or go to school? And it was like not even enough to go, you know, it wasn't even enough to pay for the books,
For sure.
right? So it was like, we'll use this and I'll put money with it, we'll get a car, right? You know? So, but basically what happened was, you know, the kid, young man, not a kid, he could drive, you know, and he basically had another guy, you know, in his ear, another older gentleman mentoring him as well. And he said, you know, oh, you know, the car started having problems and it was all fixable. You know, my friend would just fixed it, right? Instead of going to my friend, be like, listen to this other guy. And he said, oh, you can sell that right now. And like he sold like this, like, you know, a car that my friend bought for him, like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 grand. So for like $600 or something. And it was just like, what? You know, and you saw that relationship burn out. And so, you know, I think that's a very valuable learning experience for me as someone who does want to be able to give back, is sometimes you have to know where to draw the line.
For
You
sure.
know, or maybe even how to recognize those who are not going to be worthy of that investment. And that sucks, right? Like, you know, I wish we lived in the perfect world and everybody, you know, was going to receive that help and take it to heart and utilize it, but it's just not the case, man. We live in a fucked up world.
Absolutely, I agree 1,000%. But you know, who's to say that that just wasn't the right season for that kid?
I definitely wouldn't deny that. You know, you could. I would like to hope. You know, again, that goes back to I hope. Yeah, absolutely hope. But I would say from a personal perspective of protecting yourself. You know, I think some of it is, you know, you got to get to. I want to get to a place of wealth that I can just go, like, you know, like give someone a shot, right? And I'll write that money off from the get go, right? Like, hey, this person seems like a good person. You know, I think sometimes you have to be willing to, like, it's worth, you know, a few $1,000s to find out if someone's a good person or not, because they might be an awesome badass who is worth integrating into my friend circle and having a relationship with. And I want to get to a place where it's like, you know, it's worth a few $1,000s to find that out or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. But I think that it's not just looking for the right person; it's looking for the right person at the right season.
For sure. Yeah, no, for sure.
Because,
I guess how do you get good at that? You know,
For sure, that's hard.
How do you get good at that?
I think that, sometimes people are different every season.
Sure.
And so finding them at the right season,
Yeah.
and then getting them to where they need to be, and then having them build upon that. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's what really can ultimately lead somebody to where they want to be. Yeah. And so I think it's like
100%.
dimensional. It's
Multifaceted.
Multifaceted.
100%. Yeah.
So yeah.
So I think we're deep enough in this podcast that I can start going like real crazy and talking about all the shit that's gonna get this pulled off YouTube, right? I'm gonna have to put it on. What I don't even know what that is.
Twitch, bro.
Yeah, no, Twitch will take you down too. What is that new one? It's like the free speech YouTube version. I forget. I'll figure it out. I'll remember.
Wherever Andrew Tate's shit's at.
Yeah. That's the one. Yeah. We'll talk about him later. So I'm gonna talk about COVID, man.
Okay.
Yeah, which is gonna get me pulled down, but it's fine.
Yeah.
It'll blow up. If it gets pulled down, that means it'll probably blow it up. So that's good for me.
Yeah,
I'm cool with it.
I'm looking at this for a good reason.
Yeah, and we're moderate on it, I would say, compared to others that we know. But we're definitely on different sides of the aisle to some degree. So I'll give you my perspective, and I'm curious to get yours on film. So it felt I have a more, I guess, not that I agree with everything Andrew Tate says, but I think when he talks about this thing, among many other people, I feel aligned with it, which is it felt very fishy. Most of it, and a lot of things felt there was a lot of information given out and taken back, and constantly back and forth. Oh, these are going to make him vaccinated immune, and not really. You got to get more. Did my research. Okay, this isn't like a traditional vaccine. It's more like a gene therapy, which I'd already researched gene therapy. I thought it was super cool. Gene therapy could end up being these fascinating things where you go and you edit your genes and you make yourself more fit or have better eyesight, taller. Like the potential on gene therapy and gene editing is like really interesting, right? Yeah. And that's how I knew about it. When I started doing my own research, I said, holy shit, this is not your traditional vaccine. Okay. And obviously there's a lot of conspiracy theories that revolve around that. Mm-hmm. But I think what I'm getting at is it felt like so much of the world just laid down and said, okay, no problem. And a lot of people refer to people who have kind of got on like the vaccine train, or like, they put their vaccinated status on their dating profile, and it's like they're sheep. People refer to like Nazi Germany. It's like, these are the people who say they would never do these things, and then these are the people who would have said yes sir or yes ma'am off the rip, right? Like society in Nazi Germany was telling you, here's the new culture, right? The culture is you're going to behave this way. You're going to hate these people. You're going to do these things. And it was bit by bit, and they eroded. And before you know it, good men were slaughtering pregnant women in fields. And, you had a whole country of it was just normal people. Yeah. It's not like German people are just bad people or anything, but it was just normal people, right? But this is what happens when you have like this mass societal influence and cultural influence. Yeah. So I'm curious, man, what is your take on the whole, and I'll end it with this. So the vaccines are really interesting, and, I've read a few articles on these pro athletes now. Yep. And I read statistics, I think I told you the other day. And so, maybe it's bullshit, I don't know. But basically, the gist is these statistics is over the last like 30 years, you've had a very minimal amount of like pro athletes. These are like elite, hyper fit individuals. Mm-hmm. And these people rarely die from heart attacks, right? And in the last, I think it was like 6 to 12 months, you've had like almost double or something, heart attack related deaths in these pro athletes across the globe than that have happened in the last like 30 years, right? So that's like the gist, right? I'm not going to quote the exact numbers. If that's true, what do you think about all this, man? What are your thoughts, bro? Yeah, give me the truth, bro.
Yeah. So I mean, the truth is, I'm not one of those people, bro, who believe, that COVID was like this big old conspiracy, this like big old, I honestly think, maybe a lot of it was handled poorly. Sure. I think it was handled poorly because we really didn't know all the answers, mm-hmm. right? It was just a lot that was unknown, and it was just a lot of normal ass people that are in these positions that they're in, that are having to make these decisions that that are very tough decisions, mm-hmm. With very little information or the information that they had at the time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so,
no doubt.
I think that's really ultimately what it comes down to. I think, ultimately it comes down to them, wanting to do the best thing for the people and also for themselves to not.
Do you think
look like
the powers that be wanting to do the best thing for the people?
I think that perhaps most of it is to cover their own asses. Yeah. You know what I mean? And to not be that political party, or to not be the people that were in office while all of the
Right.
shit hit the fan.
Right. Isn't that every administration though? It's always like,
exactly. It's
just get through to the next
Exactly.
make it their
Just-
problem.
for sure. Just make sure it's not as bad as the previous one, right?
So you chalk it up to just incompetency. You think so?
Yeah, I think
Just
so. I think a
incompetency,
lot of it has to do with
competent
that, for
government, and
sure.
competent
Yeah,
policies.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think a lot
Lack
of it
of
has to do with
knowledge.
it, bro. I think that there's a lot of work to be done.
So any step of the way, did you go like, that's interesting? Like you never like, not once, it's just like, oh man, these people, they're.
I never like looked into it far enough to like get into these like conspiracy theories stuff for me to like really do that, right? So I did a little bit of research on the vaccine itself, and at the time of my research, I ultimately came to the conclusion like, hey, you know what? This is something that's going to be safe. This is something that's not going to fucking alter my DNA. And so, I'll go ahead and take it. Not only that, but my wife was one of the first round of people that got it because she was,
In the medical field, yeah.
and so, she got it. So it's like, hey, at the end of the day, like this is my fucking ride or die. So it is what it
Yeah,
is.
you're with
And she already got it, and so I'm gonna back her regardless, no matter what. And so I went ahead and got it myself. You know what I mean? Like,
Do you think it should have been something that was a choice? And I mean, it doesn't.
I think it was.
I don't know. I feel like
I think it was.
I feel like the common person who didn't want to lose their job, in a lot of industries, was not given the choice.
Well, yeah. I mean, as far as their employer, but I think it's okay for their employer to set any kind of rules for their employees. And if their employees don't want to follow those rules, then ultimately, hey, you can go get another job elsewhere.
It seems very rare that an employer could require like a medical procedure. So that's a little new.
But if that's what they want to, if that's what they want to do, I think that's okay. I think it's okay in the sense that like that's their business.
But I don't know that from like a purely capitalistic business perspective, employers without the encouragement and intervention from other forces would have said, hey, I'd like everybody who works here to get this thing. I think there was more to it than that. I mean, you're talking about businesses being threatened to shut down. They're not able to get, funding. There was a lot of other things going on in the background that was, I would say, twisting the arms of some of these businesses to encourage them to require employees. If it had been, here's the evidence, here's the facts, here's the science, right? Here's what we know. Here's what we think could change. Here's what we hope doesn't. This is what we know, right? I want to play devil's advocate. I have like a part of myself that pretty much is aligned with you, right? And wants to, but I stretch. I feel like I'm stretching to like align with you in all these ways, because another part of me is kind of like, well, what about that? What about that? What about that? What about that? And then eventually it's like, there's too many what about that's that have been proven many times over and over again. Eventually I go like, okay, well, hang on now, because at first it was like, hey, these vaccines are safe. You're going to get one. It's going to prevent you from getting sick. No problem, right? And then it's like, oh, well, we'll track that statement. Okay, you need to get two, and then you won't get sick, and then you're good, right? Actually, these don't prevent infection. They just decrease, they just decrease the impact of the said infection and help the healing process. They decrease and minimize, the effects of COVID, and I could go on and on. I could sit here and go the whole podcast, all the things that changed and were retracted. And I'm still willing to meet halfway, and the half of me that aligns in that area and entertain that it could just be incompetency all the way up, right?
For sure.
It does feel like a stretch though, to some degree. And there were also so many people to benefit from this said thing, right? And it seems, if it was incompetence, a lot of people took advantage of the moment, governments, businesses, corporate, it was the biggest transition of wealth ever, in our history, right? Reallocation of wealth, you're talking about small businesses going out, being bought out, left and right. It felt a little more premeditated to me. Maybe it wasn't, and maybe this was where competency was a thing, right? Because there was a lot of businesses that were acquired, right? That failed, and when you have the government saying which businesses can and can't function, and then they go under, and then said government or entities that are in bed with said government are now buying these things. You know, it's like, interesting.
Yeah, man. I think ultimately, like, sharks exist, and they exist no matter what the circumstances are. And so whether
It's just a crash ship and unfortunate events, and the sharks got lucky.
and the sharks are gonna eat.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean? The sharks are always gonna eat. You know,
Maybe.
either you're a shark or you're a sheep. And,
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. You know what I mean? And so in every single economic downturn, there's gonna be people that are gonna eat.
No doubt.
And they're gonna take whatever they can take.
Yeah.
What I mean? So ultimately, like, are you going to, what side are you going to be on?
Yeah.
I mean, what side are you going to be on, regardless of what political chaos is happening, or regardless of what is happening in the world? Like,
Mhm.
you know, you're going to be on one side or the other. And there's always going to be those people that are going to take more than maybe they deserve, or
Sure.
perhaps more than you think they deserve. I don't know what the right answer to that is, but, you know, I don't think that we can chalk that up to, hey, this was just one big old conspiracy. Like, this was one planned event for, you know, this premeditated distribution of wealth. I choose to believe it wasn't like that.
Sure,
You know
and that's
what I mean?
fair. I think that's the easier choice. I think it's scarier and harder to believe the other. So I would say the half of me, the mainstream half of me, agrees completely with you.
Yeah.
You know, there's another half of me that I don't even say would disagree, but is just not convinced.
Yeah.
Is not
Yeah.
convinced.
Perhaps.
So then I'd say my last question in moving on, because I think this has been like, you know, beaten like a dead horse, you know. But so two questions, you know,
Okay.
do you have any, based on all the evidence that's come out over the last 6 to 12 months regarding these vaccines, is there any concern or thoughts or maybe like, you know, seems like there maybe wasn't as much research done on this thing and it wasn't what we were told it was, any of that thought process? And then if, regardless of your answer to that, my second question is going to be, let's assume that nothing is wrong with them as of yet, but something comes back into the future, it turns out there are these things wrong. I'm curious what your thoughts on that one would be. So the first one, obviously, what do you feel? You know, is there anything?
Yeah.
Popped
So the answer to the first question is yeah, for sure. So recently, I came across an article that talked about a lot of the boosters, right?
Okay.
About how a lot of the boosters
Are they different than the original vaccines?
For sure. So they're
Are they?
different. They're attacking different strains
Okay.
of the virus, and so. But the problem is that some of these boosters, it's taking so long to roll them out that by the time that they're being rolled out, there's many more variants that are
This whole problem with the flu, though, right?
Right. That it's like the older vaccines or the older boosters, they're not really helping you in any way.
Sure.
Right. And maybe even impacting you from your body being able to build those whatever it needs to be able to fight that virus naturally.
Sure, antigens or something.
And for sure. So I did read that, and so as far as like me taking any boosters, I'm probably not taking any boosters anytime soon, just because I think that I'm healthy enough to be able to fight off whatever it is that I happen to come across, right? Whether
Do
it's another
you
strain,
think that you wouldn't have been
fine without it.
fine without the vaccines altogether?
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I think I would have been fine with that for sure. Me myself, absolutely. I think other people maybe not. I don't know. Me myself, absolutely. I think that I would have been fine without it. I think that I'm healthy enough to be able to be okay, right? Regardless of the fact, would I have had a different experience? I don't know. Maybe, right? I like to think that maybe I wouldn't have.
So what you know right now?
Okay.
I dropped you 2.5, 3 years ago, whenever COVID started, right?
Mhm.
I drop you back there. Would you get vaccinated again, you think, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, for sure. Because at the time I would have still done the information updating that I would have.
Well, I'm saying you know all of it. Like
I know it-
you
I know it
retain
all.
all your experience up to now, and
I
then
know
I
it
just. Well, I mean, you know what you know up to now. I'm saying right now, right?
yes.
Would you,
Because my wife got it.
so just to like as a show of like, you know, togetherness or something of that nature.
Yeah.
If you have to do this, I'm going to do it with you for support. Or,
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Because you know what, like it is what it is. Like, you know, she ended up getting it. I mean,
Yeah.
Regardless, it is.
there was hesitancy on her side, or
No, not really.
Okay.
It is,
so then why get it with her then? What's the point? I mean, just to.
I mean, yeah, like wow.
I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm asking you.
Like this is ultimately, like, this is my person. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
you know, we're gonna create a child together, whatever the fuck she has.
Yeah, but I mean, if she has like a medical condition and needs treatment for it, that doesn't mean you should, get the treatment too.
No, for sure. But,
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, I'm gonna create a child with this woman, and so
Okay.
whatever it is that she has,
Yeah.
like regardless, at that point, I guess I'm gonna have it too, and so.
So, but like, it seems like unnecessary. Like she could still get like she would need to be vaccinated simply to keep her job, right?
Yeah.
It's just the medical field, right?
Sure.
But so you wouldn't knowing what you know now, probably not necessary to get the vaccine for your safety or health, right?
Yeah, no, but at the same time, I've experienced zero side effects.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I've experienced zero side effects. So at the same time, it's like it didn't, like there was no negatives.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, would I have taken it again? Probably. Why not? Literally no side effects. Nothing negative.
Sure.
To this day.
That's
So,
fair.
I mean, if that happens to change within the next 5-10 years, okay, well, ask me again. Maybe I might have a different opinion.
Well, we don't know what the long-term side effects could be.
Right? But
That isn't that a concern though? Isn't that weird?
perhaps, but isn't that the same concern with any other vaccine you've taken or anything you put in your body?
I think most vaccines go through like a decade of trials, so it's like the long-term side effects. I mean, 10 years minimum is like the traditional vaccine.
Perhaps, but what if it
human
pops up
trials.
after 15 or 20 or 30 or 50?
Sure, but at least you're minimized. At least you have longer trial. I think you're closing the gap on your risk, though. A 6 to 12 month trial is a very big drastic difference versus a 10-year trial. It's
Yep.
like, it's very hard to understand what potential long-term side effects could be on such a short trial.
For sure, but ultimately, like based off of my research at the time.
Yeah. You did your research, made a decision,
I made
and
my decision.
yeah, and I respect that.
I made my decision.
Yeah, I respect that.
And you know what I mean? Like I'm a man. I'll stand by it.
I respect that. I like that shit.
And like I said, at this point, I have had zero side effects. So unless that changes,
I hope you never have any side effects.
sure.
I don't wish that.
I really don't.
I'm not made up. I don't know that. I never saw the point. Based on my research, I was seeing. Like I said, I'm on the other side of the aisle, and I was concerned. I was very much on board, and then as these things continued to roll out, and it seemed like information was constantly being pulled back, retracted, changed. That is very not typical of these types of things, and so it raised my alarms and my red flags. So those things were concerns for me personally. Yeah, and I would say I still have my concerns to this day, but I'm very reasonable, and I think you should have the freedom of choice to get that, and I disagree with employers being able to force individuals, employees to have that medical procedure done. I don't think it's they can't tell you to go get a polio vaccine, or
there's worse examples of this.
That maybe you are, but it doesn't justify it, doesn't make it right,
Yeah.
I got all my normal vaccines as a kid growing up to go to college, right? No employer is going to force you to go get any of those vaccines, though. This is a very odd thing, and
there's a lot of things that are odd.
oh, of course, but this is just the topic we're talking about.
Yeah.
So let's move on, because you talked about politics a few times, man. Let's get into politics, bro. Oh shit! So, did you watch the State of the Union speech?
No, man, I didn't actually.
Oh man! So our president, I'm gonna ask you what you're thinking, and but basically, he said some good things. I'm not gonna just completely crap on the guy.
Okay.
Whatever they're giving him for those nights, though, man, I like that stuff, man. I think he's just, because I see him in like normal interviews, and he's very much, he just seems like a very deteriorated older person. I feel bad for him. I don't have any resentment towards him, but I don't like his past history of politics. He seems very corrupt, and he's done bad things like the crime bill with the Clintons, and I think that was a racist bill. And it feels weird seeing someone who's done atrocious things that were very unprogressive to be like this like progressive nominated Democrat,
For sure.
Guy, and he just seems like I always associate him with like the blind man, or like the man who like loves reading and finally made it to the like infinite library of all knowledge,
Right.
and then he sits down. Oh my God, I'm gonna for the next infinite amount of years, because I have everlasting life. I'm gonna read every book I can, and then like his glasses slip off his nose and they shatter. And it's like, no! And he's that seems like it's Biden who's like, he wanted this for so long, and he finally fucking got it, but he's like, he's too fucking far gone to enjoy it, and he's like, the powers that be are just like, go read from the teleprompter. Don't wander around and get lost again. We're tired of you. Do what you're told.
That's very descriptive.
What do you think? I don't think he's very competent. I think he has his competent moments, and he's there, but he seems like he's in and out for the most part.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's weird to me seeing such a incompetent person who is running, that the country that has been one of the highest power countries in the last 100 years. I mean, I think we're on the downward spiral, but it's like, dude, we're one of the major powers in the world, and this is our leader, our elected leader. It seems like, what? Really, this guy?
For sure. So I don't think we're in a downward spiral. I think that almost every single generation could probably thought the same thing.
Sure.
So I don't necessarily think we're in a downward spiral. But yeah, for sure, man. Like, do I think that maybe we should have somebody a little bit more competent, maybe a little bit younger? Maybe a little bit more.
Is there an age restriction on the presidency?
I don't think so.
That's crazy.
Should there be? Probably.
Probably.
You know what I mean? Probably. We should probably have, like, I don't know, maybe like a little IQ test, beforehand. Just to check on things. You know what I mean? Just to make sure things are, light bulbs are still on. And shit like
Don't
that.
you think that speaks loudly about the population that elected him?
Yeah, for sure. But for sure. I mean, maybe not the population. I think the way we run things. I think things maybe.
I don't think that's a fair statement because I don't think the options are fair.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a fair. I'll retract that. I think that was a
population,
jab. I'll take that back.
But for sure, as far as like the United States and their in their process of maybe how to elect these people, and where these people from, and how these people gain popularity, for sure. I mean, is there a problem? Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, come on, bro. Kanye West ran for president.
Anyways,
that's what I'm saying.
I don't think that means a lot.
But
one of our presidents was a Hollywood actor that can cut, and he didn't do it. I mean, he wasn't the best.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
he was competent.
Should we have maybe some more rules, regulations, and maybe I don't know. I think maybe I think maybe we should.
I mean, I think we need less rules and regulations in the aspect of voter manipulation, right? Because I think personally there was so much media manipulation on the public perspective that election probably would have gone very differently.
Perhaps,
if you had been given a clear view of both sides of the aisle, not that I would say the other side was like the optimal candidate by any means. At least I know he says outrageous things and he's not appropriate all the time and all of those things, but business wise he was competent.
You talking about Trump?
About Trump.
Yeah. For sure.
Economically, the economics of now, even without COVID, the economics of now and the policies of now versus then felt better.
Yeah, for sure.
They felt better.
Very different circumstances, like altogether. You know what I mean? So
I'm trying to take into condition like COVID and things that this administration couldn't have
for sure
controlled or expected.
Yeah. Like I said, very different times, very different circumstances. But at the end of the day, like what I firmly believe is I don't know, man. We should there should be maybe some more rigorous tests to who is it that could become president. And
I agree with that.
Who is it that become president? And I don't know, maybe I guess.
I think the right people that would make the best presidents do not want to be. It's like Marcus Aurelius. It's like he didn't want to be president. He was demanded by the population that we need you to step up.
And that sucks, man. Why is that? Maybe we should sweeten the pot a little bit for the president.
I think smart, good people don't want that position for a lot of reasons.
Well, we should make it to where that position looks attractive for these people, right? Like, if you want to hire the right person, you make it attractive for that demographic.
I don't think the powers that be that seek to gain someone like Biden, who is manipulative and very corrupt and easy to manipulate because of the corruption, I think they prefer someone like him, right? Who's easy to get. Say everything you will about Trump, and I would definitely not call him non-corrupt by any means as well, but he I don't think was by any means easy to control by, I would say, puppeteers, right? People who, these I don't want I don't want to put target on my head, but I think there are people who far exceed powers of presidents of governments, and these people control from a very high place, and you get into these positions, and I think the presidency is a crazy position. I think you walk in, you sit down, and they show you a little black book, and then they show you. I don't know, like there's a Joe Rogan podcast, right, where this comedian's talking, and he says, I think what happens is you go into a room, and they go, okay, Mr. President, and they turn on this video, click, and you watch a new angle of the Kennedy assassination you've never seen before, and that plays out, and then they sit down and they go, any questions? And you go, ooh. And they go, all right, you're gonna do anything we say, or that's you. That's a comedian that said that, right? I'm not saying the government killed Kennedy. I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying I think you find yourself in a position of far less control and far less power than the population has been given to believe. So you mentioned something earlier because I made a statement about our civilization, right? So my thought process is it feels like the Western society and Western civilization is deteriorating, to me personally. It feels like the morals, values, ethics, not that you have to align with everything, but this ability that I think Dubai has done a really good job. I think Dubai has their morals, their religion, their values, right? But they let everyone in. 80% of everyone in Dubai is like an immigrant, right? And you come in there, you can be very successful. You'll respect our ways of doing things, but we welcome everybody, and they're becoming they're growing in massive ways. These other places in the world, right? Dubai's a good example. And I look at the Western societies, and it doesn't feel like we're expanding. Like it feels like we're deteriorating. We're eating each other. And we're divided. And we're, so you don't think that. You think we're cool, or maybe just going through like a little hiccup phase, or it feels to me like like Europe, England, America, a lot of these Western societies are losing their hold in a lot of ways, and it feels like maybe like Russia, China, Africa, which Africa's not by China. Some of these other countries are in many ways starting to get a grip on things, and we're losing a grip on things. Do you not think so?
I don't know. Not really.
You don't think so?
That maybe could be the case, but I don't know. Not really. I think that people maybe felt that way, during the fucking Spanish flu. I think people maybe felt that way during the Great Depression. Maybe felt that way during World War I. Maybe felt that way during World War II. Maybe felt that way during the War of Vietnam. I don't know, bro. I think that every single generation kind of dealt with their own shit, their own set of shit. And so I think that's true. Ours is just this is just the pile of shit we're dealt with.
Yeah. I think it's just the polished shit we're dealing with on the assembly line of polished shits that have all come before us.
For sure. I think there's going to be more polished shit to come. I think there's going to be polished shit that our children are going to deal with. I think there's going to be polished shit that our grandchildren are going to deal with. I think that's just the nature of the beast. And trying to cultivate that fucking beautiful garden in the midst of all of this bullshit. I think that's really the most important thing, rather than just hyper focusing on the bullshit that is happening, or the polished shit that we've been given. And so, man, like I'm not really a big, guy on politics. I'm not,
I know, that's why I wanted to ask you.
That's just not really me, man.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'd rather focus myself on, what are the hands that I've been dealt with, and how can I make the absolute best out of that. And so, as far as other countries maybe getting their shit together, I don't know. I'm not as aware, on those topics as maybe you are. But I will tell you this, man. As soon as I feel like there's another country that can better serve my purpose and can give me a better quality of life and give my children and my family a better quality of life, I'm there, bro. You know what I mean? But in the meanwhile, I'm gonna build my foundation, and I'm gonna establish myself so well, and hyper focus on that versus hyper focus on the things that I really can't control.
Sure.
And
I think it's a balance, though, right?
It's a balance. Right?
I think
it's
you need to be somewhat aware.
I'll put my one vote out of the 330 million people in the United States. I'll do that. But ultimately, I'm going to hyper focus on the things that I can control, the things that I can change. That way, whenever it's time to make that pivot into whatever country that may be, that's going to provide a better family, a better life for me and my family, I'm there. You know what I mean? And I have the means to do so because I built my foundation and I built myself up just well enough to be able to make that transition seamlessly, quickly, and be able to live that life wherever it is that I want to live.
Well said. Well said. Well, I think I agree with mostly all of that, and I think that's a very elegant statement. And I will end with this on the politics topic. Then I think it was Socrates. I don't remember. I think it was Socrates, but I think he said something of like, if you do not take an interest in politics, politics will take an interest in you.
Absolutely.
Which is if you don't stay informed. Because I mean, when people think politics, I feel like a lot of people associate politics with like this like celebrity drama show that it has become. But the truth is these things are dictating the laws that dictate ourselves and trickle down to the regular person, right? And so you have a lot of people who are so disassociated with the regular person that they can't relate, they don't understand, and they're so corrupt, fought out, owned, lobbyists, you name it, right? And I think these people are driving things into a bad direction that doesn't lead to a good place. And I mean I think like when you say the statement you said about every generation, when I hear you say that, I hear of like I think of like dogmatic Christians, like Old Testament dogmatic Christians, which is like Jesus is coming. It's like every generation believes Jesus is coming like during their lifetime, right?
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? I think I hear the same thing there. So I get it, because it's like I don't know, it's like that seems more like an influential cultural thing to have that opinion, and so it can almost feel silly to think like, oh, it's gonna be like the society's gonna collapse in my lifetime, and like
right.
Everyone's screaming Chicken Little, Jesus is coming in my lifetime, it seems like it's this very yes. So I get it and I relate and I understand, but as someone who does make the time not to obsess but to be informed, it feels like there are trending things that you can really touch base with, historical collapse civilizations, and it's at the least a concern. It's on my radar, to say the least.
For sure.
I'd say in the long term I'm positive, but it does feel like although like any other country and any other civilization, we're far from perfect, and not everything we were founded on was perfect. And we have our history just like every other country. I think there were good things, right? And it definitely feels like throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing, instead of taking the good and leaving the bad, which is, I think, the best alternative. So
sure.
I'll leave it there, man. I'll leave it there.
For sure.
So what do you want to talk about, bro?
I'm here for whatever, man. I'm
Yeah?
here for any and everything, man. You know what I mean? I'm here for you, bro.
Man,
I'm proud of you, by the way, man. I'm proud of you
bro.
for this, bro.
Hey, I appreciate you coming, man.
Really
Thanks for
cool.
showing up, man.
For sure, bro.
I really do.
I feel like our conversations are always really good. You know what I mean? They're
100%.
deep. Those are the type of people I like to associate myself with, bro. And
Yes.
just,
Thank
what I mean? Like, yeah, for sure, bro. I think you're good at this. You know what I mean? I think
Oh, let's go.
for sure.
Well, I hope I am. I hope this goes somewhere, Obviously.
I'll be rooting for you, bro. Every single step of the way, man.
Thank you, bro.
For sure.
That means a lot. I want this to be a good thing, right? I want to be able to add the value to the
For
viewers,
sure.
and I want to be able to add entertainment, and then
For
I also
sure.
want it to be mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
I want to be able to, promote the people I bring on,
For sure.
and I don't want them to just come on for me to only be the one getting value. So,
For sure.
whether you walk away and you go, man, that was good. I felt good conversation. You asked good questions, promoted myself or my company or whatever.
Sure.
Obviously, I know this is the wild and shooting from the hip episode, but seriously, Joseph Valenzuela, guys, this guy is building some awesome homes, and he's really scaling himself up and reaching. I think he's happy to take on the average person, but obviously he wants to scale up to more creative, larger, cooler designed houses, and punch up into that new market.
Yes.
And I think you've got great designs, good ideas. You do a great job. And nothing's ever perfect, right? Especially in this industry, and you shine on, making sure you are available to assess and fix any potential problems, right? Because there's always little things, right? And no one's perfect, but a lot of builders can be dicks, and not my problem, or your warranty's expired, or whatever, right?
Yes.
And I think the way that, and the merit with using you is you have a moral value.
For sure.
Because you don't want to just make money, but you want to be proud of how you make that money.
Yes.
And you're really good at treating your clients and forming those relationships with them as just people. And so I know in your heart you have this desire to do good. And I know you couldn't sleep at night if you just took someone's money and told them to screw themselves or something and didn't make something right. So, not only will you get a good house and a good bill, but I think you can rely on the owner of the company being willing to sit down with you, talk with you, and any kind of concerns or any kind of problems, you're gonna make those things right. And I think that's like, you can't put a price on that. I think I've got so our mutual friend, Joe Gonzalez, right?
Yes.
Attorney in law.
Yes.
Hoping to have him come on.
What you're gonna get on here?
Yeah. Who I'm gonna have on here. I hope so. Yeah. He has a really excellent horror story, that I think adds value back to you. And we'll probably talk about it if it comes on. But basically, hired a builder to come in, and builder ran out of money halfway through all of the construction processes, and you run out of funds, and your renovations or construction are half-assed complete, and you've got a hole in your wall where the roof's not complete or the drywall's not up yet. And so that's a really awful place to be in, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes if you make the mistake of hiring on the wrong person, you can spend thousands of dollars and still not get the recourse you want.
For sure.
So, I really do. I think that the value I'm trying to explain you offer extends so much further than just a monetary thing. It's gonna save you so much more in the long run. And I think you do a good job of pretty much most of your clients you're cool with, friends with or something. You got high-end clients, you got like just the average person, and I think you do a good job there, man. So I think you're someone who as you expand, I hope maybe this podcast gives you some exposure to find some really interesting clients who are successful or eclectic or want to be able to utilize you and sit down with you and go, hey, here's what I want. This is kind of out there, but can we? And I know that's the kind of person you are. You'd be excited to sit down with and I want to do something different, or I want to try something new. Or I've got some cool design ideas, or I'd like to bring in your architect, and I'm willing to sit down and have these conversations. So I think this is going to be an exciting step forward for you as you move into those different projects. But I know you also are working on something else for yourself right now, which is rentals, right?
Yeah,
Tell
for
me
sure,
a
man.
little
For
bit
sure.
about
Okay, so one thing for sure is like me, being into this industry, I realized like, hey, one of the things that I'm gonna have to really do is really be able to set myself apart is making those right investments, right?
Sure.
And part of making those right investments is dabbling into the short term and long term rental market, right? And so I've dabbled into a little bit of the short term as of now, as we were speaking about
Airbnb.
At the Airbnb.
Okay, and that's been pretty successful so far.
It's been going great.
That's awesome.
It's been going great. So
Let's go.
that was between 4 partners, right? It
Yes.
was, me, Joe Gonzalez, and you just mentioned William.
Taylor.
Which William was, my very second.
That's cool, right?
Yeah, for sure, man.
That's how cool you are with your clients,
Absolutely.
man. Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I sold my second home to William Sharp.
Okay.
And man, that's that's for sure one of my best friends. Again, speaking about people that were at my wedding and people that are very.
He was one of them.
My heart. He was one of them.
Yeah, he's a good guy too.
He's a great guy.
I'd like to have him come on.
For sure. And you should.
Yeah.
You should. And so, being my second client and Taylor also being a client, very, very good friend again, somebody who was at my wedding. These are people that are very near and dear to my heart, you know what I mean? And I'm in business with, and things are going freaking great, bro. Things are going great. Shout out to the property manager, Side Cribs. They've been great as well.
That's a dope name.
That's a cool name.
Let's go, bro. Marketing 101, baby. Let's go. A1.
They have been taking very good care of us, you know what I mean? And so,
awesome.
And now it's time to expand. Now it's time to, one Airbnb is cool, and it's time for,
Do it
2
again.
and 3
Yeah.
and 4 and 5 and 6. And, the sky's the limit, you know what I mean? Something that's very cool, man. So my wife booked a little getaway trip this weekend, for Valentine's Day. So
Oh,
it
let's
started
go.
on Saturday.
Oh, man.
Dude, I absolutely love that she does like these little things for me, man. Like she,
Yeah.
you know, she'll just book little random things, man. I'm really bad when it comes to like planning.
Yeah,
I'm so bad, bro. I'm
Yeah.
so bad. Which just sounds kind of
Yeah, no
stupid.
shit.
Yeah, which just sounds kind of stupid, bro. Because obviously I do a lot of planning when it comes to my job and my business and what I'm doing, but. When it comes to just like planning like little things for, you know, like little weekend getaways or little trips or anything like that, I'm terrible, bro. I'm terrible. I'm the type of guy that I'm just terrible at it. And her, she definitely picks up the slack, man. And she's really good at it. And I appreciate her for that a lot. And so anyway, this weekend we're going to a little getaway. It's in Waco, you know, something small, nothing crazy.
Sure.
But it's this property, right, that a developer developed with, you know, little small, super ultra modern little houses.
Okay.
And rents them out, has probably a little man-made lake.
Okay.
Where you can kayak, you can do little amenities.
Let's go.
And these guys are charging a good amount, man.
Yeah, because it's like a getaway, right? You kind of get the getaway from the.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's such a demand for that now.
For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
such a demand for that now.
And it's like I'm going out there, yes, with the intent to have an amazing time, but I'm also going out there to learn.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
I'm going out there to learn.
Yeah.
Every single one of these opportunities is a learning opportunity, and this is definitely going to be one, you know. And she knows that, right? Because
Sure.
she's excited for that. She's like, I know you're gonna like this. I know you're gonna learn.
It's a 2-for-1.
It's a 2-for-1.
It's a 2-for-1.
It's a 2-for-1.
Yeah.
And the fact that like my partner realizes that, I couldn't ask for anything better. You know what I mean?
I think that's such a beautiful thing, man. You know, it's one thing to have a supportive woman, which I think that's an asset, right? I think a supportive partner, but I think women support men in a very
I think that's the
beautiful
asset,
way.
bro.
It's what?
I think that's the asset.
The asset. I think you're probably right. I think with the right woman, a man can conquer the world.
Absolutely.
Right? And there's a balance and a symmetry that comes with having the right person. But, you know, to go a step further, it's nice to be able to share, you know, because that's not something I necessarily put on as a box that has to be checked with the potential, you know, lady whenever I do find her. I don't necessarily need her to share my business goals or my entrepreneurial, you know, desires and things of that nature. But if she is willing to participate here and there, and like, you know, that's cool. That excites me, right? You know, and I know Jen, right? So, you know, if she has found this thing and found a way that like, and that shows like she put some real thought into it. It's like, hey, I want to find a good getaway. I want to get away, decompress, have a little nature. But then it's like, oh, on top of that, I know what ideas he's rolling around in his head and what he's thinking. And this is going to cover that as well. And I'm excited. And then like, you know, she presents that idea to you and you're like, oh, wow, that looks great. I would go there even if I wasn't thinking about it, right? And then it's like, boom, 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 boom. That's cool, man. That's awesome.
That takes a woman that really knows you, bro.
I'm envious, man. You know, as a single guy, it comes with its benefits, you know, and freedoms, which are always great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely envious of how early on you found, you know, the right girl. And yeah, you're right. No, the asset.
Sure.
Yeah, the asset.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I really don't think that I'd be where I'm at right now if it wasn't for her.
Well, there you go, man.
You know what I mean?
That's cool, man.
Whether that be because, you know, it was a little bit of a, you know, buckling me down.
Sure.
Whatever it might
Get your shit together.
For sure. Whatever it might have been, man, I don't think that I would be where I'm at.
You know, in psychology, I know I've heard a lot of different psychologists, Jordan Peterson, they talk about it. They say, you know, one thing you learn in like marriage psychology and relationship psychology is women will provide like self-awareness to men.
For sure.
You know, and when I hear you say all those things, that's exactly what I think of is, you know, there's these like esoteric intangible assets and value that, you know, the right woman can bring, which is, hey, you know, this isn't who you are. It's time for you to step back up.
For sure.
Right? These are things that are like extremely motivational and extremely deep. And it's hard to tell someone young when they're trying to like find the right partner, or they're having their romantic, you know, adventures, to look for these things. But I think that's important, man. If you can, and it's hard to like, hey, I want you to be this, you know, it's like, this is such a hard thing to put your hands on, but it's cool, man. And clearly you've got that with her. So that is, that's beautiful, man. It's beautiful, man. And I think that you're right. I think it's awesome. And I think that you don't even need a woman to be able to do all of those things, but then it's just even that much more. It's awesome.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, that's cool. So what is the plan moving forward with family and relationship? You know, let's touch on that a little bit.
Yeah,
You know,
for
not,
sure.
maybe not too long. You know, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, absolutely, man. So like,
What's your goals there?
One goal for the year for sure is to just be a little bit more positive and just kind of put these things out that I'm that are my goals out into the world. You know what I mean? One thing for sure.
Like what?
One thing is for sure having a child.
This is for you, Jen. I'm pulling it out.
is having a child for sure.
Okay.
You
This
know,
year?
Maybe not this year, but
just
this year soon. You know,
Having that.
just having that positive
that
mentality
goal.
towards it.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Having that,
yeah.
positive mentality towards it.
Yeah.
Because,
Being purposeful about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because, not that I'm not positive about it, or not that I struggle to be positive about it, but the thing is, it is a little bit difficult whenever, you see all of these things, happening in the world that could potentially be dangerous to a young mind. You know what I mean? And it's
That's
become-
crazy. You were just like, the Western civilization is great. Everything's fine.
No, for sure, but I mean,
There-
it's going to come with its challenges. It's always come with its challenges. It's going to come with its challenges regardless if I raise my child in Japan or if I raise my child
Because of just where we're at in
just
the
where
world at
exactly,
this time.
for sure.
Is that something that's been holding you back or concerning
It's
you?
not something that's been
primary?
holding me back, but it's something for sure that I've been thinking about. The older that I get, right, whether I'm able to replicate the recipe that I felt like I had.
Yeah, that your parents were able to
that
give to you.
my parents were able to give to me, right? Whether I'm able to replicate that, how I'm able to replicate that, whether it's nature, whether it's nurture, all these external factors that are happening in the world. It's a scary place, and it's just a scary place to raise a child.
We're
And
dealing
so
with different struggles.
We're dealing with different struggles.
Like our parents struggled way harder in many aspects, right?
In
Maybe
very different
financially or like actual physical labor, things of that, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
We struggle with a little
But at
more.
the end of the day, man, my parents were immigrants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They know English now, but they still struggle with it. You know what I mean? So you can only imagine being in a country that's predominantly,
English speaking.
English speaking,
Yeah.
and you hardly know English, and you're trying to make it work, and they
Right.
did. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, for sure, their struggles were a lot bigger. But doesn't mean that the struggles that we're going to deal with are any easier.
They're definitely harder though, right? Like, it seems like the struggles that our parents and their parents, it was very, you grasp it, right? Like, oh, I need to eat food, we need to, I feel like we're dealing with like very much like esoteric spiritual,
I just-
like morals, and you don't think so? You
I
don't
just-
think you're better off with you and your wife right now financially, materialistically than
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
parents?
But that's because I was able to build upon what they were able to build.
Sure.
But I expect my children to be able to build upon what I'm able to build.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? And so every single generation is going to come with its challenge.
Well,
Every
I
single
agree with that.
generation
I just
is
think
gonna-
we're dealing with different challenges.
I think we're dealing with
Yeah.
different challenges, but they're equally as challenging.
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to demean the level of I would make an argument that in some ways the difficulty, I think so struggling, for example, right? Like we were just talking about your parents.
Yeah.
I think in many ways that is a healthy thing and can be, like you look at like happiness statistics, like quality of life statistics, and it's like happiness grows with quality of life, and then it just takes a drop after a certain, like once you get the essentials, it's like your quality of life doesn't necessarily keep going up to a degree. So you go to these third world countries.
I think that really depends on who you ask.
Maybe, but I can only go off like these like very generalized statistics, and I hate to generalize, but unfortunately, I'm talking in broad spectrum, and it feels like, based on what I've read, the people who are living simpler lives in some degree in these non-Western civilizations seem to be happier, right? And that we're dealing with these very nuanced, like, ethereal challenges, like, it feels like morals, for example, right? When our parents were growing up, morals were probably not like a hard thing to really not as obviously I think it was. I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but as someone who would like kids one day, I worry about morals and my kid being like a good person and not letting the darkness of all of these things that are now socially acceptable, let's say like the over sexualized marketplace that our kids are now, like there were like these respectable traditions or cultural, traditions in all these different cultures, Hispanic communities, white communities, black communities that were, you certain, you could say it was sexist or whatever, but there were at least some of these structures that, held you to a certain standard, and it's very much blown open. I don't know that necessarily I would say it's completely bad by any means, but it definitely feels like for example, if I have a daughter, right, I am, concerned about how heavily influenced she's going to be by social media, how exposed young men are to things. As a single guy who's dating around, it's like, man, these young girls are exposed very quickly.
Sure.
And that was probably not the case necessarily to the extent that it is now back then, right? So these are things that I think about and that worry me. So what are you worried about, man? What do you think about?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, more than anything, man, I think that I worry about just them being passionate about life. You know what I mean?
How do you think that comes back to our conversation about instilling that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How do you, that's a hard one, man.
Love the nation.
Yeah, how do you nurture that spirit in them?
Or nurture. Love.
Do you think you need to withhold to a degree, let's say, luxurious lifestyles and materialistic things and all of these things? Do you think you need to have a bit of, lack of experience in your life to develop that desire?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
I think that you can still teach your kids, because here's the thing, man, like my children, they're going to have a very different lifestyle. They're going to have a very different upbringing that I did, right? Financially.
More privileged. Yeah.
Lifestyle.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I can't teach them those hard lessons that I learned. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean that I can't teach them, those very tough lessons that need to be taught at an early age. You know what I mean? So I think that really depends on me. That depends on the time that I have, and that depends on the amount of work that I'm willing to put in. And I'm sitting here today telling you that I'm willing to put in a lot of work, and I'm willing to make sure that I have the time. Both me and my wife, we are going to make sure we have that time. That I think that was a big part of my childhood that was missing, was just that time. You know what I mean? And I don't blame my parents for that. Like, they were very busy and they were, doing what they felt they needed to do in order to make the quality of our lives better. But that is something that I choose to do different, man. Is really give them that time, pay attention and learn, and teach and be, gentle but at the same time ferocious when it's time to be that.
Yeah.
And I think that doing so, it's really going to teach them what they need to be taught, right? If I'm filling their love tank and giving them the lessons that I feel like they need to learn, I think that was me. They're going to go up to be good children.
Yeah, there's a quote by Andrew Carnegie that comes to mind to me, and he's talking about exactly what we're talking about. And he says, one of the best things you can do for your children is for them to grow up poor. I would call it like the Trump derangement effect, right? So, Trump has this inability to ever get the recognition, even if he accomplished his great thing, because, he grew up with a very successful father who gave him a small multi-million-dollar loan, and it's like you're always in that shadow forever, right? And so, I think to myself, I don't know that being able to provide them a more privileged lifestyle will be better for them. And so that's, I don't know if I'm like that, I'm not, what parent, Joe Rogan talks about this a lot. Like, every parent wants the best for their kids, but it seems like some of the best people have gone through the hardest things, the most traumatic things, have struggled, like the funniest comedians have serious trauma. The most successful businessmen have had to crawl through the mud and the dirt. It feels like the struggle is directly connected with that enlightened, successful, nature.
Yeah, but that struggle is relative.
Sure, of course. Yeah. No doubt. Yeah, I mean, if you grow up very privileged, for example, you blow your tire on the side of the road, you sat there for 8 hours in the sun, that feels like a fucking bad day. It's all right. Right, but if you grow up in an impoverished, country, 8 hours in the sun is just another fucking day.
For sure.
Right.
For sure. It's all relative.
Yeah.
So I think you can still teach these things. You know what I mean? With that lifestyle, and the child that chooses to then build upon that. Well, I mean, what is more beautiful than that? You know, what is more beautiful than something than your child being able to build upon what it is that you were able to build?
Right.
I mean, what's the point of building to then raise your children at the same starting point that you did? Like, well, then why did I get to level 12 if I'm raising my child at level 1?
I think that's for you though. That's your journey. Like, and you have to go on your journey so you can reach the highest version of yourself by the individual journey.
I don't think that way.
You don't think that way.
No.
You think more legacy.
Like a what?
Legacy.
What is?
Like legacy.
Absolutely.
Leaving.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, if I reach level 12,
Yeah.
and if I choose to, marinate my children in level 10 and get them to level 20, that's my goal. You know what I mean? Like,
I want to do that.
and then the level 20 is them going to do the same, and hopefully we reach level 30, man.
Yeah.
Look, man, coming from a Mexican American, first generation born in the United States, we got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do before we catch up to what's common in the United States, right? We got a lot of work to do.
You personally, or like in general?
As far as the Mexican American community,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I mean, I'm trying to catch up to you.
We don't have that generational wealth. We don't have what we
I don't have it either.
Well, for sure, but what I'm saying is there's a lot of people that do.
Of course, you go to Spain. There's a lot of
people for
that.
sure, but I'm talking about here in America.
Okay, sure.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that do, and so us as a race, we are behind. You know what I mean? And I'm going to do everything in my power.
I think it's instilling the values, though. I don't think it's actually giving them these things.
It's
I think you need to instill the
but
values.
it's instilling the values, but
Practice
also
of.
providing the resources.
I don't think I want to do that.
You don't want to provide the resources.
No, I think I'll hurt them in the long run to do so.
Look, man, I was given some great opportunities that a lot of people weren't given. You know what I mean? Even just my parents staying together. It was an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take those opportunities, I'm gonna run with them, and I'm gonna make the absolute best out of it. I'm gonna make the absolute best case scenario. And I expect at least one of my children to do the same. You see what I'm saying?
I think your children are going to be their own people, man.
Absolutely.
They may not want what you want.
They might not. I'll keep popping them out until at least one of them does.
Oh, that's some selfish, you know.
At least one of them does. But the thing is,
I don't want to look at it that way, me personally. I think that's a very parental and honorable and normal way of looking at it. You know, I don't think what you're doing is necessarily wrong. I've just read, I just finished. I reread The Richest Man in Babylon recently.
Okay.
It's like this old finance book pulled from clay tablets discovered from the city of Babylon thousands of years ago, right?
Okay.
And it's crazy how some of these morals and financial practices, still hold true to this day, right? And obviously, as you can tell by the name, one of the stories you read about.
Okay, hold on. Pause.
Pee again?
Yes.
You son of a bitch.
All right, I'm small.
Edit that out. Dad gave him this big bag of book, right? And I think the moral of this story is you can't teach your child to be worthy of these inheritance and of these things, right? They have to go out into the world and learn it through experience, right? And through struggle and through failure, right? And it's very hard for parents to provide that through teaching, right? I think the world will teach you. And so if my thoughts, and I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here, my thoughts on, what you're saying, it feels very much like, that's typically what like every mom wants, right? Like, and as the father, you have to step in or as one of the parents, you have to step in and put an arm in between yourselves and your child so that they can go out into the world and find themselves in struggle and become. Otherwise, you're dooming them to maybe a degree of unhappiness or a degree of unappreciation or a degree of not being worthy of, or even living in your own shadow. I think Trump's a good example, right? Although I think he's accomplished a lot of things, he's got all these hotels and blah, 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 and maybe you could say he doesn't do business right or morally, and I think maybe that's an argument that could be made. He's clearly taken what was given to him and amplified it to a large degree. But a lot of people would still not respect him, right? Because of how big of a jump he was given because if he started from such a place of privilege. And so that's my own devil's advocate argument, right? And that's a hard thing to do as a parent.
Would you know what I would
Say to that?
people?
Sure, what?
Fuck them. What is that?
Fuck them leaving.
Fuck the people that wouldn't give them credit. Fuck the people
Sure.
that. Fuck the people that think.
Sure.
That, fuck the people that think that.
Well, he probably thinks the same thing. He probably says, fuck
That's
them
what I'm
too.
saying.
Yeah.
So
Fuck
it's like, who
cares?
gives a fuck?
Right.
At the end of the day, he took his resources that he was given
Mm-hmm.
and he multiplied them in whatever way he thought was best,
Mhm.
right? Moral, not moral. I'm not here to fucking discuss that.
Mm-hmm.
But he multiplied. He multiplied the resources he was given.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I'm saying. Is I'm going to give my children resources. All I do is expect for them to build upon them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to multiply them. Just build upon them. Use them. Use them wisely.
Mm-hmm.
And use them to be passionate, to add value to the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't think I need to raise my children how I was raised. I don't think that. I think that I can come up with my own way.
In what ways would you like to raise them not like how you were raised? Any specific
Again,
examples?
it's time.
Time?
I think that's
You just want to be more
I just
present
wanna
in
be
their
more
lives.
present.
That's fine.
I just want to be more present. I want to give them more time. I want to give them more care. You know what I mean? That is my biggest investment that I will make in life
Mm-hmm.
is these children, right? And so if this is my biggest investment, this is my biggest fucking project, I'm gonna give it time. I'm gonna water it. I'm gonna make sure, you know what I mean, that I give it 1,000% of my effort. You know what I mean? In order for them to be, you know, these, you know, the people that I feel like they should be, that I want them to be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, for sure, time.
Interesting.
Okay.
That's a deep one, no.
For sure.
And it's an interesting one.
I think about this all the time. I talk to my friends about this all the time. A lot of us we're in this age where, you know, we either have children, or some of our friends either have children, or they're about to, or they're thinking about it, or whatnot. And so these conversations, they you know, I have them frequently, and even with people that have had children, and I get their opinions.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like ultimately, I like to learn from as many people's experiences as I possibly can.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. That's what a wise man does for sure.
What about you, man? You want children?
Yeah, I want children. Yeah, I definitely want children. I grew up in a home where you know, I had like a decent sized family for the most part, pretty much a lot of people present, and I had a really cool parent. My parents were really cool in the sense that, like, of all the kids, because I was like the big kid in a group of bad kids, and so we would just decimate people's houses and like wear muck and get in shit. And so my parents were the most lax because I was like the most trustworthy of all the, you know. So my parents kind of trusted me to a larger degree, so I could get away with, you know, everyone would come over. Oh, his parents are cool. They let us stay up late, and like, you know, we can be a little louder. They'll put up with it. You know, like out in the country, they'll have a running room. You know, there was a few parents that's like no one wanted to stay with me right there because it was just like, holy shit, we can't do anything. We just sit here. We just sit here and be quiet and watch TV. It's like, this sucks, man. You know, I mean, eventually, you know, like, you know, my stepdad would come in here, grump in the living room, grunt like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. It's like, it's time for us to shut the fuck up. You know, it's like, okay. But, you know, we got away with murder to a degree because I had been such a well-behaved young kid growing up that, you know, I was extremely like responsible.
Yeah, that trust.
And I had that trust, right? And so I had a lot of friends who were, you know, little mischievous fucks, and, you know, their parents knew it. You gave them a little slack, they fucking take a mile. You know, like we would, I remember we just they decimated Ethan Powell's mom's house so much, man. Like they took a bunch of shaving cream and filled up the hallway to like a foot full of shaving cream, like duct taped her bed, and they trapped this poor woman in her room, bro. You know, I mean, just tons of vulgar stuff. You know, I came over one time in the middle of a summer day, and one of my buddies is duct taped to a chair in the middle of the living room, and they're like interrogating him with a butcher knife. You know, just we were wild, man. Like, you know, we're lucky. A lot of us are lucky to be fucking alive. And you know, I can go on and on and on. But I mean, yeah, we would just get into so much shit. But you know, like I think it was my 16th birthday. My parents gave us like the silent, like you can get, because we would like go roll people's houses. We're in the country, we're poor. We just wanted to fuck shit up and find something to do. And like, yeah, you know. And so like roll people like TP. The TP.
Okay.
What do you call it here?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. You never. Oh, okay. This must be like a more country thing. Yeah. So you'd like get like a lot of toilet paper, and you go like throw it in the trees. It'd be like hanging from we would make it look like it fucking snowed, right? And we were just little fucking terrorists. And then we'd like throw eggs at the door, and oh yeah, and so we took it way, you know, we got away with it a lot. And we would have like TP wars, and our parents would hate it because we would like pull up or like walk, you know, 3 or 4 of us lived in a big ass neighborhood. And you could walk maybe like 4 or 5 miles, and you could just get to their houses. It'd be like multiple neighborhoods out in the country. You could walk there.
Yeah, that's crazy. Though. Like that's probably like some Louisiana shit. Cause,
I guess, or just in the country. I think
in the city in Texas, like
no way.
Get shot.
Yeah, you're gonna get shot, right? Well, I mean, you might still get shot out there, but it's a very different thing. You know, it's like, you know, you hear a gun cocked in the middle on a driveway in a dark night. It's like you're gone. But you know, so we would like, you know, like we'd pull up. Like Cameron, he lived like. You know, you really couldn't walk to his house. So we would like drive up and all be decked down, like pull up, like roll the fuck out of something, like fucking peel off, and like, you know, like, and we'd have wars. Who the fuck, and you try to figure out who did it, and you know, we were just rolling. And our parents hated it, like fucking stop it, you know, and so they gave us the seal of approval, and we wanted, and so like me, Cameron Clark, Ethan Powell, and TJ Cornwell, we all like, yeah. And so we're all underage, you know, drink some beer out of a nice chest by the fire tower at the end of my road. And so, you know, and Cameron bought like a bunch of industrial army surplus rolls of toilet paper, like the big ones you see at like office buildings and stuff. Right. And we wanted to roll someone. And we finally decided on Garrett Wilkerson's house, who we had played football with and been Boy Scouts with. And so like, we wanted, like, you kind of want, like, you know, it's like a murderer. Like they want to kind of like get caught. They want you to, you know what I'm saying? Like these psychopaths. And I think that's like, you know, like we were kids and kind of, like we didn't just want to roll some random person. We wanted to roll someone we knew. And that was like someone we could walk to. And so we walked like, you know, the 1.5 hours to 2 hours in the middle of the night through all the back country streets to Garrett Wilkerson's house. And we took it way too fucking far.
You were just walking like a shit ton of like.
Oh yeah, we got backpacks full of fucking toilet paper and a carton of eggs, and you know, and so we rolled the fuck out of in like big front yards, big pine trees. I mean, we're chunking these things, man. You know, like think like Greek, you know, like, you know, disc competitions, just you know.
But like you're tossing it, and then you're going out and you're catching.
Yeah, like boom. Oh no, it like boom hits the ground. You go up and you tear it and you throw it again. And you just run them, man. You just run them and you spin it around the trunks and bushes, whatever. You know, we're kids. Anything we can figure out, right? And when we run out of toilet paper, we start egging the door, and we really want them to come out. Like we're beating this door with eggs. Yeah, so like we kind of want them to come see our handiwork, right? So we want them to come out, and like we've like emptied the carton, and no one's coming out. It's like, you know, they heard it. And so and then Cameron bullies Ethan Powell into taking a shit on the driveway, and Ethan like shits on the driveway. And then to make matters worse, no one has come outside, and we're just little hooligans. And so we start throwing rocks at their metal garage door because we just want them to come out and see our marvel at our work, right? And no one ever comes out. And so we had no clue, but Garrett and his dad weren't there, and the only one home was his mom and his little brother, who are fucking terrified. And they have called the cops, and we take off walking. We take off walking before they ever even show up. And, to make matters worse, a few houses down, we started throwing rocks at houses. I don't think I was. I may have been. I don't remember. But someone gets lucky and like, you know, like the glass doors in front of doors, you can't tell at night. There's like a glass door in front of the door. Well, someone cracks the fuck out of one, shatters that bitch. And so we make it all the way back home. We're like, you know, we're like glowing in our like triumphant, you know, blah, blah, blah. And we get a call from my stepdad. We're at the end of my street by this, like, it's just like woods. My street like dead ends and it's just like woods. But there was this like fire tower. It was all woods. And it was like, you know, one of the guys who owned that, he was like a richer guy at the end of the street. And he'd like imported this fire tower for whatever. And we would sneak over the fence and barbed wire and climb over it and then like go up it. And it was super sketchy. Should have never done it. So we're sitting at the bottom drinking beer. And I don't think I had even drank yet. I don't think I would drink. I was like the good one of the group. And I get a call from my stepdad. He's like, get your fucking ass home. Everyone. And we walk back down the street. We're walking up my rock driveway. And there's these two cars that I don't recognize. And all of a sudden, like a light like beams us. And I was like, oh shit, it's two cops. And oh yeah, man. We got ratted out by one of our friends. Who,
as you should.
And they're interrogating us. And I was too smart for my own good. So, you know, they're interrogating me and I'm getting mad too. Like, you know, where'd you get the toilet paper? It's like, from the store. You know, where'd you get the eggs? From the grocery store. And my parents, oh, what are you doing? You know? Oh yeah, man. I wouldn't rat anyone specifically, but then they want to know who took a shit, and I did tell them about the shit. You know, because I just thought it was like a hoot. I thought it was funny as fuck. So, I mean, that's one small story. You know what I'm saying? And these things have made me like a better person, in my opinion. Getting these things out of our system, and then also like learning the lessons the hard way. And these are experiences like kids aren't gonna have these days anymore. Like we talk about it all the time. Me and Cameron, like, you know, it's like you can't make these mistakes or get away with these things anymore. You'll go to jail for like, you know.
Yeah, as you probably should. You know, but
I think should.
I think these kids are gonna have their own experiences. I think these kids.
I think they'll find their own ways to. I think like music festivals are a way of this, right? The like camaraderie and, you know, it's like I think young men used to get like welcomed into manhood, right? It was like at a young age, you turned a certain age, and someone would put their hand on your shoulder and say, "You're a man now. Here's what's required of you," right? And you would be welcomed into manhood, for example, or ladyhood, right? And we don't get these experiences in our culture anymore, and the youth are hungry for them. That's why music festivals, I think, are so, because it's an experience, you know, and there's a community, and you're having this, you know, experience that I think is great. And I think they will. I think you're right. I think they will figure out a way to kind of find these things and get into it, but I don't think it's going to be for the better, personally.
Yeah, hopefully not. I mean, hopefully it is. You know, maybe not. I don't know.
You never got in trouble when you were a kid, bro?
For sure.
Give me a story, bro. Give me some crazy shit. What'd you do, bro? Put you on the spot.
I definitely never shit on anybody's driveway.
Me neither.
I don't know, man. Getting in trouble as a child, bro. Like, here's the thing, bro. Like I told you earlier, I always knew how to like ride the fine line, right, between.
Yeah, but you don't have like one crazy story, like something wild or gotten some fucking shit. And I really always skinned by the seat of our teeth. I mean, they wanted to send us to juvie, but the parents knew us from Boy
like
Scouts.
Some shit that I got caught for.
You tell me, sure, or just tell me a wild, like doing some wild out, fucked up shit, like young youth. I think that's just being young.
Okay, for a little while I got into graffiti.
Graffiti, okay,
Yeah,
there you go.
So I was like big into graffiti. I told you I was big into art.
See, I think this is the same thing. Like this is coming from the same desire, like the same pool of energy as a young person, right? You know, maybe there was like some artistic justification behind it, but you're committing vandalism.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It was vandalism, absolutely.
Yeah.
I justified it as art.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But yeah, it was vandalism.
I could get caught. There's some like danger.
Oh yeah.
It's exciting. It's fucking exciting. Yeah, man.
Absolutely. So
I think our culture lacks these things.
Yeah, for sure. So I used to do. I got into graffiti for a little while. You know what I mean? I don't know, other than that, man, just like stupid little shit, you know what I mean? Fights and just, you know.
Tell me about one of your fights.
I mean, none of them is like
The little scraps.
Yeah, it's like none of them are like very aren't very very meaningful. It's just like stupid little things and stupid little scraps. It's children. Nothing crazy. Yeah, man. Like I said, I mean, I got in trouble in school maybe, but it was never anything crazy, man. It was never anything like that. It was always like very minute things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I kind of knew how to like not really get into shit, bro. Honestly, I had a very strict mother. You know what I mean? Like my mom was very strict, and so if I was anything in school, like she's gonna beat my fucking ass. You know what I mean? I did not want that. You know what I mean? That was the last thing I wanted was to go home and get my ass whooped.
Yeah.
And so I always had those like that thing right in the back of my mind, like, hey, bro, you fucked up, like you're gonna get your ass beat. You know what I mean? And so yeah, it was never anything like super serious. You know? It was always right in that fine line.
I mean, I had strict parents too, but I was like the good one, but I like, you know, I have a lot of wild stories. You know, I would so I was so when I finally got like my first real girlfriend in late high school, I was just, dude, I would have fucking died for that girl, right? I was in deep, and like you could not keep me fucking away from her. And I because I rolled with like a group of like kind of like wilder guys. Like Cameron was a little wild one. He was like, you know, so I had that air around me, even though I was the good one.
Yeah.
Her parents did not like me, and she would stay the night with God. I didn't watch this. Oh crap. So she would stay the night with her grandparents.
Okay.
And it got to the point where I would sneak out so much to see her. I just wanted to see her. I wanted to be with her every chance I could.
Right.
My parents started nailing my window shut.
Yeah.
They started catching me, and because I had like a whole system. I could like sneak out the right window. I could like.
You just walk to her house and shit? Or?
No. I would turn the battery on my car, and roll the window down and close the door. I couldn't crank the engine because my parents were here, and I would push it down our rock driveway all the way
to
to
the car at the time.
Yeah, I had a car at the time. And I push. I mean, I had a car as soon as I turned, like, I mean, a few months after I turned 16.
Nice.
You know, I was ready. I knew. You know, the conversation had been had. It was like, if you want a car, you know, we're not paying for it, and you're gonna need to get a fucking job, right? You're gonna have to have insurance. You gotta pay for that, right?
So you had a job at 16?
Yeah, I had a job at 15. I got a job before I could drive.
Nice.
I got a work permit. I've been working since. I mean, I technically been working since 14 because I would push mow lines.
Nice.
But I mean, as soon as I could legally work at 15, I got a work permit and got a job and started saving so I could have a car. And like, I had the car when I got my license. Basically, I was ready.
Nice.
Anyway, so I would push this car down our driveway, and then I would get it out onto the you know, we had like a shitty country road, but I would get it all the way from the house so I could crank it so they wouldn't get attention. And then I would drive and I would park like she lived at the outskirts of a place we used to call Balkanville. It's called Balkanville, which is like the white trash ghetto. It was rough. People died and drugs, and she lived at the edge, which was like still kind of country. And I parked my car down this like country road next to like a pasture where like cows and shit were, and then I would walk down this road and then sneak into her window, like, you know. And we were like very Christian, like we didn't do, you know, we did everything but parents, ex's parents, everything but for the longest time, you know, I was respectful, but I would try to push boundaries, and she would, you know, I think that's right, you know, girls don't do that anymore. You know, she would let me go to a degree, and then you not have to wait, and you know, blue balls for like a year and change, baby dog, you know what I'm saying? But I fucking loved the girl. I was fucking infatuated with her, and even, I mean, long after like the infatuation cupcake phase, like I was all in, you know. And
that was your first girlfriend?
First girlfriend, yeah. First
in high school?
I mean, I would say like my first official, real, legit girlfriend. Yes, I mean, I had like a few like little, you know, like I had like a little elementary school girlfriend or whatever, but it wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, it was nothing, you know. Like take pictures and hang out and play with toys together and like, you know, kiss me on the cheek or something, like how talk get married, you know. It's like we were kids, you know. She was my first legit like love, my first real girlfriend. And yeah, man, dude. I mean, I could not be. I remember one time, like, I don't know if I wonder to this day. I think her grandfather has passed away. No, he's still alive. Oh yeah, and he was like a hard ass, you know, countryman, right? Like working man. And so I don't know that it was him who did this, but I remember one morning I would have to wake up early. I would have to wake up and get out of, her place.
You spend the night.
I mean, sometimes, yeah.
Sure.
And, or I'd leave like real, I'd come see her at like, 11 or 12 and be gone by 2 or 3 or, but sometimes I'd stay till like 4 or 5 in the morning, but I had to wake up real early because he got up early. I had to get the fuck out of there before. I remember walking back to my car one early morning when the sun's rising, and the rear glass window of my sports car has been beaten out with a crowbar. You can tell because there's like rivets in the frame where the crowbar hit. Nothing was stolen, and my entire window had been bashed out. And I had to make a whole up story to my parents, like, oh yeah, I was spending the night and I had to leave my car in the parking lot of the church, like, because I was staying with my buddy or whatever. Had to get the rear window, and it didn't. There was not a moment where I even considered not going back again. I was back again as soon as I could. I was just a walk. But I mean, it got to the point where so they started nailing my window shut, and I had this little hammer I would keep, and I would tap these nails because they were bent. They had hammered the windows and then hammered the nails, bending them to like impinge the window from opening. And I would tap the nails just enough to like bend them back enough that I could get the window open. And then when I got home, I had to tap them back down so they wouldn't. I'd snuck out. But yeah, man, my junior and senior year, man, I missed like, I would go off like 2, 3, 4 hours of sleep sometimes just because then I had to wake up at 6 in the morning. I'd go to school, or whatever.
That's crazy.
And that's the more docile, domesticated story. That's a more docile, domesticated story. That's just me trying to see my, my girlfriend, my high school sweetheart, at the time. So, yeah, man, I've got a lot of those.
I definitely did some wild shit like that, but like I said, nothing like that like got me in trouble too much. I knew how to stay away from trouble.
Jen was, and I can see that you're a smooth talker for sure.
Yeah.
I got better at smooth talking later on. I'm a talker now, but I wasn't like smooth.
I for sure knew how to like.
I was like a little fucking rebel. Like I was too smart for my own good. So yeah, I could talk my way up to a degree. I was definitely the like Cameron got his license first, and so they wanted to drink, and I wouldn't drink, but I couldn't legally drive, and so constantly I would end up driving Cameron's little bench seater GMC, no license while they're drinking. And I mean, just, to go see a girl or something, and so I mean, plenty of those fucking stories, but I was definitely a little more on the rebellious side later on as I started like coming out of my shell. So when did you and Jen meet? She was your high school sweetheart, right? You met in high school?
Yeah, so we actually met in middle school.
In middle school?
Yeah, we actually met in middle school.
But it wasn't like, have y'all been together like consistently since then, or
no?
Okay,
For sure not.
Okay.
But I didn't meet her.
You met her in middle school.
I met her late middle school.
Was there like any kind of like young junior high middle school dating? Or?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah, y'all dated?
Yeah, The thing is, man, like, bro, by the time I got to middle school, like, I was like,
little lady killer?
For sure.
Yeah,
like,
I can see that.
Okay, so like I had
you
like,
thought you were hot shit, bro.
hell yeah. And so like at the end of the day, like in middle school, like there was a girl that I liked.
Yeah.
Like
she was yours.
It was only a matter of time.
Yeah.
It was only a matter of time.
I can see this.
And so I remember like seeing her for the first time, and like I grew up in Grand Prairie, and so like I knew. It was really weird, man. Whenever I was young, I was like, I moved from an apartment complex to like a house, and within the apartment complex, switched over to the house, and then the house ended up changing like school zones.
Oh, sure.
So I ended up going to like 3 different like middle schools,
Bounce
or
around a little
3
bit.
different elementary schools. So I got to learn. I got to meet a lot of people like that. And that sounds really fucking strange.
No,
as an elementary school kid, but I met a lot of the kids, and so by the time I got to like middle school, you know what I mean? Like I knew a lot of the kids.
Maybe a little more mature, socially like experienced than maybe some
Sure.
others. Yeah, so you had a tactical advantage.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I guess you could say that. And so I knew a lot of the kids, right? I knew a lot of kids from my school. I knew a lot of kids from my other schools. And so whenever, so Jen is actually from the Valley, right? From down south, in the Calvin area.
Okay.
And so as soon as I laid eyes on that chick, I knew like, oh wait a minute, like she's not from around here. Who is she? Like I want to get to know her type deal.
What was it like? Was it like, oh dang, she cute?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
Of course. It was like, hey, who's that? Like I need to get to know her.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was
Junior high, middle school.
Yeah, for sure. So it was only a matter of time. You know, it was only a matter
So I
of
assume
time.
y'all maybe like had like a fling or a dating thing in junior high.
Oh,
and
for
then-
sure.
And then broke up for some reason.
Yeah, for
What'd
sure.
y'all break up for?
I don't know, bro.
You don't remember, bro? Come on, tell me,
Yeah,
bro.
I don't remember.
What'd y'all break up for? Some bullshit.
Yeah, it's a little stupid shit, bro.
Yeah, you're junior
bro. I
high.
was in
Yeah,
junior
that's
high.
right.
You know? And
So then you date some other girls,
Yeah,
and then
for
when
sure.
you reconnect.
You know,
Sure.
and so we pretty much high school.
High
You know what I
school.
mean? And so we date throughout high school.
Starting again, right?
Like pretty much like ninth grade.
Oh, really? Like right off rip.
Like right off the rip.
Like you kind of have a thing with her in junior high or middle school at some point, and then obviously you're young, so it's like lasts like a few months or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then like you know, macking on other girls throughout middle school, and
For
then
sure.
and then what? So high school freshman year takes off again, and off rip you're like, hey,
Yeah, pretty much.
How did that happen?
Pretty much. I don't remember quite how it happened.
did you
but-
pursue her? You just like
Yeah, for sure. I always, you know what I mean? It was like, hey, you know, like she was. I always had this attraction towards her. You know,
Sure,
I always
there was
had this.
chemistry.
I always had this attraction towards her, and
Sure, fair enough.
in all reality, man, I really think that me and her, we provided something for each other that we were lacking maybe at home. You know what I mean? And so we provided that throughout, you know, really the entire course of high school. Like
Right.
literally throughout the entire course.
yeah, consistency,
And
foundation,
for sure,
time.
for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was rocky, but at times. But
Yeah.
regardless, that we were there for each other. We were much so there for each other. And then we started like our goals started aligning. You know what I mean? And then once our goals started aligning, mixed with like her being able to provide, you know, certain things for me, and vice versa, it just seemed so natural. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
nothing was ever forced.
Well, eventually it's
That
just
way.
like this is the
This
way.
is just my person.
This is my person.
This is just my person.
Yeah.
And so again, like I was still a little dumbass and still wilding out. And, but I had my person, and that even continued out throughout college. You know what I mean? And like it really helped me kind of like just zone in into what it is that was important in life and what it is that I needed to really focus on. And then we did have our time where we did separate for a little while, for a couple of years even as adults, which
It was a couple years.
it was a couple of years.
Okay.
Um,
Young adult, early 20s.
yeah, young adult, early 20s out of college. But ultimately, man, like
Eventually, just gravitated back.
yeah, for sure. I really realized like, hey man, like this is the girl for me. Like ultimately, like like I can go out there and have my fun and do this or do that. But ultimately, like if I wanted to like settle down and choose somebody, like it was gonna be her.
It was gonna be her. Yeah.
And so
I'm sure she did the same about you.
yeah, for sure. I think so. And so we reconnected, and that's whenever I realized like, hey, you know what, I gotta lock it in. You know, I gotta lock it in. And I was going through a lot of different things in my life at that time, and starting the business venture. And so we got engaged in what was it, 2019.
Yeah, and then COVID and delayed. And
Yeah.
hey, lit wedding though, bro.
Thank you.
Lit wedding, bro.
I appreciate it.
You know,
I
and
appreciate it.
I gotta put you on blast, bro. Your girls' vows were way better. I cried a little bit on hers, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
She got it, and I don't cry very much these days, bro. She got a couple tears out of me.
No,
That was sweet, man.
She's very well spoken. You know what I mean? She's very well spoken. She's very smart. She's very smart individual, man. She's, you know what I mean? Like I choose them. I know how to choose them.
100%, man. 100%. I think she is got that natural feminine protective energy, and like a mother bear. She'll fucking fight for her family and her husband. You know what I'm saying? So I get that vibe from her. Like she's and I'm envious of that, you know, as much as I want like a sweet, feminine, you know, beautiful, soft woman and all those things, right? Those instinctual things you like, you know, there is something appealing about having like, you know, like, oh yeah, she's sweet, she's pretty, but like, you know, don't fuck with her, you know, with her family, or, you know, what I'm saying, like the fucking, like there's another side down there.
Oh,
you know
for
what I'm
sure.
saying?
That's the Latina.
There's a Latina, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
For sure.
That's. I see that in a lot of women, though, you know, and you know, I've had, you know, my problem is because I'm also a little more disagreeable, and have some of those, you know, I'd say dispositions. I clash sometimes. Not that you know, not that it's necessarily a bad thing, but you know, sometimes I think I don't choose the hills I know very well sometimes, which I've learned. But yeah, you know, as appealing as that is, those type of traits in women seem to sometimes get me into trouble, or maybe not appealing, or we clash too much or something. You know what I'm saying? So maybe I'll work all that out as I move on. And, you know, but no, that's good, man. You'll have a good thing.
No, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
I wish you all the best.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, man. Thanks again for the wedding invite.
Absolutely.
Well, man, I think that, I mean, we've gone a long time, so I think
How long have we gone, bro?
Oh, dude, a couple hours.
Really?
Yeah, like maybe 3
Oh,
hours.
shit,
Yeah, it flies by. I might have to edit this down.
Yeah. For sure.
But I definitely, man, one, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely. And two, I definitely want you to come back.
Yeah,
You know, I don't think we got as wild on this one as maybe you were worried about. So, you know, let me know what you're thinking. And then, again, I never want this to be a one-sided podcast. And, you know, there is a lot to you. So, you know, it's hard to get to, you know, even a 2 or 3 hour conversation. So I definitely would love to have you come back.
Yeah, for
maybe
sure.
get more in depth on a few things.
Yeah.
And as you grow and expand yourself, your business, you know, your family, I'd like to explore those things with you and see what value you can add to others. Who can, you know, like you were saying earlier about your kids, who can learn from you without having to go through that experience themselves. I think there's a lot of value in that. So I want to promote you and, you know, wish you success. So Zwella Homes.
Yes, sir.
Zwella Homes.
Yes, sir.
So hit up my boy if you're looking to build a home in the DFW area.
Yes.
You will not be disappointed.
Sure.
And you know, any kind of real estate related, maybe even renovations, or I don't know, anything in that area that you're thinking about. You know, he's got connections. He does great builds. He can hook you up with, you know, pre-qualifications. You know, connections with lenders, connections with title companies.
Sure.
You know, which that's how we know each other, and more. So
even when it comes to consulting, you know,
for
any younger, you know, builders looking to get into the industry, man, definitely hit me up. You know, one of the biggest, you know, one of the biggest differences in my career was being, you know, consulting, right?
Yeah.
Is reaching out and you know, getting those mentors. You know what I mean? And so if I can provide that kind of help for anybody like that, for sure, you know, I'm there. So
that's awesome, man. 100%. Well, man, is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, man.
Where can they find what's your website again?
So I don't have a website yet.
How can they find
that?
I can put it in. I'll put it in the links in the description. I got you. Because you've been so successful just word of mouth alone.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Just word of mouth and just you know, recommendations. You know, new people recommending, and
that's awesome, man.
And still to this day, you know, even in a slow market, you know,
still residual and we're fine.
For sure.
Well, if this, you know, episode goes anywhere and, you know, we get good viewership, I would love to hear that. Like, holy shit, I'm getting so many calls or whatever that I can't, you know, or people emailing me maybe wanting to talk to you that, like, holy shit, dude, I can't manage this, not in business, you know, that's what I would love to hear. That would be dope.
For sure.
But yeah, man, hey, dude, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, man.
You're one of my best friends, one of a great friend, and
Likewise.
a great contact. And I wish you and yours and Jen the best. And yeah, man, I definitely have a lot I could sit here and say, but no, man, it's been an awesome experience. No,
For sure.
It's
Same.
been
Likewise,
fucking
man.
dope, bro.
Likewise, bro.
It's been fucking dope.
It's crazy that it doesn't seem like it's been. I mean, it's been what, 3 years now, right?
Which is not that long.
Which is not that long.
Yeah.
Which is not that long.
But at
honestly,
the same time, it does feel.
it feels like I've known you for fucking damn near half my life. You know what I mean? And that's in a good way.
In a
You
good
know what I
way.
mean? In a good way. You know what I mean? In a very.
I took it a good way. It's a good way.
No, for sure. So yeah, man. Honestly, it's been a hell of a ride, bro. And I feel like this is just the beginning. You know?
I fucking think so too.
I always like to feel that way. This is just the beginning. You know what I mean? I think we're capable of so much more, and so it's only time to tell.
Well, I couldn't agree more, man. Well, thanks again for coming on and supporting my dude. I really do appreciate you, man. I wish you the best, man. Success, happiness, marriage, life, kids, anything, man. Anything I can do for you in the future, bro. I got you, bro.
Hell yeah.
All right, brother.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. This was the Ongodd Podcast. Again, brought to you by the Post Office and Super Sweets by Vince Chaco. Hit him up for all of your digital mailing address needs if you're trying to start an online company and you're looking to, you want the actual, post office address instead of using like a PO box or something. You'll get an actual suite number and all of that if you're looking to do maybe like an Amazon business or something of that nature. So definitely hit my boy up. I love him a lot. I want to give him a shout out. And then obviously shout out to my boy Joseph Valenzuela for coming on the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Yes, sir. You got some value out of that. And then shout out to my lazy ass friend Taha Mirza, bro. You see, catch him on YouTube or Twitch. Hopefully, he's trying to get in the streaming game. You can catch him. He goes by gamer tag Taha Blast. I'm gonna have him on Monday, guys. So thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I know we went a little long on this one, but I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see y'all next time.
Hell yeah. Peace.